This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Tonight is Tuesday, November 10th. Tonight we have a general meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission and also some public hearings of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We're starting at 8 o'clock or thereabouts. We're in room 213 at Town Hall and also virtual via GoToMeeting. If you don't mind, I'm going to change the order of the agenda a little bit. Hold off on election of officers and adoption of the two meeting schedules and get right into deliberations. If that's okay, just say yes. If anyone has an objection, you say no. I got a thumbs up. Thank you. Okay. First item, deliberation, possible discussion on the following public hearings closed on October 20th. Also, site plan review number 129B, as in boy, flood damage prevention application number 127B, Jeffrey Beringer at 36. This is the application that is house that's at the end of Beach Drive. Sits on Holly Pond. You're going to put in a spa, trellis, and some other hardscaping and a fire pit. I read the application. I read it. It's pretty self-explanatory. I do have a couple of questions on it. One is this doesn't mention a variance. We talked about that a little bit. Does it have to have a variance at all?
It did get a variance. Finding number 3 on page 2 talks about the ZBA variance within the setbacks.
Yep, yeah, I'm sorry, you're right. That variance is incorporated by reference. It does have a variance relative to the size, right? Because it's pre-existing.
Yes, pre-existing non-conforming lot.
Okay. The other item that I checked on was on number 13. It talks about them moving the HVAC equipment from one side to the other side. Does that HVAC equipment have to be raised up to get it out of the floodplain?
It will be raised up. I believe that was a condition of the ZBA approval.
Okay, do you want to just add that to the sentence?
Sure.
To create a space for the equipment pad for the spa that will be raised up, something like that?
That will be on a platform to comply with the flood regulations.
I remember we asked him about it. I don't remember seeing it. And then it comes up again on item E at the end.
Yes.
It's up. It says it's going to be on 14-foot elevation. Okay. Those are my questions or edits or comments. Does anybody else have anything on this resolution? If you do,
Kara's
just chime in or say your hand.
Jim's saying no. Kara's saying no. George shaking his head no. Larry's saying no.
Okay. Then I would take a motion to enter a motion to approve the resolution as drafted and edited.
Yep.
George made that motion and Jim seconded. All those in favor? Eyeball.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0.
Yep. Okay, great. Thank you. That's the first one. The next one we have is coastal site plan review number 350, flood damage prevention application number 402, Harlan Stone, 108 5 Mile River Road. This is the application where the gentleman wants to put a pool in his front yard. A little bit odd, but it's legal. Right across the street from Holly Pond.
5 Mile Road.
5 Mile, yeah, 5 Mile Road, thank you. At one spot, like in number 3, and this is maybe a technicality, it talks about being across from the river, and then it says that it's across from the Lion and Sound.
Yeah, we should take that out. It's across 5 Mile River Road from the 5 Mile River.
Instead of,
I would say, yeah, I would change in both places there, the 5 Mile River.
It says it a couple different times.
Yep. Fred?
So it comes up on number 2. Number 2, maybe it comes up on number 3.
Just number 3.
Currently runoff from the pond drains directly to the Long Island Sound. So you're going to change it to Long Island to 5 Mile River.
On which number 3?
Number 3. The
yep,
second.
in 2 spots.
Okay. And then I think it comes up on other terms. back in a second. With regards to number 6, I'm sorry, number 9, we talked about this when we did all the stuff in Norotan Bay. It says an associated buried propane tank is proposed south of residence. Does that have to be anchored down?
No, because it's up at a higher elevation, so it's outside of the flood zone.
Okay. The stuff in the bay, that was always anchored down because it was
Within the flood zone, right?
okay. And the only couple more things. Number D as in David, number 3, it talks about the street opening permit.
Yes,
Is that just temporary?
it's basically you need a permit from DPW anytime you do work in the street.
Right.
So in this case, it is temporary.
Okay.
They would get a permit, post a bond, their contractor would post a bond, and then once the work is complete, Public Works would go out, make sure they haven't damaged the street, and give them their money back.
Okay. It's not like a curb, they're doing a curb cut.
No new curb
temporary.
cut, it's temporary.
That's because they're bringing trucks in and out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Then at the back end, if we did this, we used to do this before. Do we ever require pictures? That's what the as-built summary and stuff like that. Is that something different?
Sometimes we require pictures. In this case, we haven't. We'd rather get the certification on how everything relates to the flood zone
And the elevations.
and the elevations.
Okay. That's fine. All right, I'm good. Anybody else have any questions on here at all? George is saying no, Larry's saying no, Kara's okay. Then it would make Jim's Rand saying no. Okay, I would take a motion to approve as amended, which is just the only amendments are edited. The motion was made by Kara and seconded by Larry Warble. Thank you. All those in favor? Say aye. Aye.
5-0.
Moving right on. Somebody's texting me is Jennifer is on her way. She's in transit. Number 3. Landfilling and regrading application number 488, Terrence Filewych and
Filewych.
How do you pronounce his wife's first name?
Lydia.
Lydia, it's a different last name, Nawich, 97 Fitch Avenue. This is the new house that is under construction / built next to the old Norotan Firehouse.
Correct.
Again, it's a 1/4 acre lot in a 1/3 acre zone, so there's no variance.
No variances needed.
Before. Okay. And all they're doing is put a patio off the kitchen side of the house in that little alleyway. What did I do? The only thing I added was a clause to number 4, where it says the water will still flow from north to south towards the post road.
Up towards Boston Post Road.
Because it helps me, not anybody else. That's all I had. Did anybody have any corrections, comments to this resolution or draft resolution? I don't see anybody jumping around. Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to approve as written. Anyone raise their hand? Let's, Jim Rand. Yeah.
Jim Rand, yeah. Larry Warble.
Jim Rand motion, Larry Warble seconded. All those in favor?
1, 2,
We got
4,
everybody.
5.
Yep, got it. Great.
5-0 as amended.
5-0 as amended. Okay. The next thing we have is this subcommittee, do the approval of minutes. Get this stuff out of the way. We can just go to approval of minutes, folks. We get that stuff out of the way. We have minutes from October 20th. We have the first one was nothing because it was continued. First item, kites by department, that's their shit in the backyard. And a resolution, I didn't really read these.
You might have to wait for Jennifer to come because I wasn't at this meeting, so I can't vote on this.
Your name is on the agenda, the 20th.
Was I at this one?
Says you were there. Riley, Rand, Gately, and Warble.
Okay.
Says you were there. That's true.
Oh, I was there for this one. Sorry. Yes, you're right. I was getting confused.
If I had your date today, I'd be confused.
No, I was at this one.
Cool.
Yes. Months and dates are now getting confusing to me, given.
Yes. I had no comments on this. Did anybody have any comments? Nope. I think Jim Rand just raised his hand to motion to approve as submitted. Was that you scratching your head? Jim? Larry seconded. All in favor?
1,
Still
2,
scratching
3,
his head.
4, 5, 0.
Okay. Next, October 27th minutes. We have, what is it? The first item was the 7-Eleven, which takes up a lot of it. Those items. Then we have the, it's where we approved the woman's stuff that did the afternoon stuff.
After school,
After
fire
school.
department.
And then the resolution for that, which we can't change anyway. Another resolution. Does anybody have any comments, changes to the written portion relative to the 7-Eleven?
For the record, I believe Jennifer Leahy has just arrived.
There she is. Hey, Jennifer. You're muted, but that's okay. My whole screen just went.
Mine is okay.
Oh, I lost all my people. A whole bunch of people showed up.
Steve, it's Jim. What was the question you just asked?
Does anybody have any questions with regards to the documentation of the minutes with regards to 7-Eleven? There's just, it's a lot of it's on 7-Eleven.
Okay, no, I don't have questions. I have concerns, but we can discuss those when we deliberate.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is just a minute so far.
Yeah, great. All right, thanks.
Sorry about that.
Just
Oh,
a small
Right.
typo, just on page 4 of 16. Second paragraph, just the verb is left out. So it says Attorney Suchins that a 24-hour operation would serve a public benefit. Just adding stated or said or represented.
Thank you.
Okay, George, do you hear anything?
That was mine too. Very good.
Oh,
We-
good catch, George.
Yes, Karen.
It's the same
Yeah.
one, Jeremy.
Okay.
What Kara said.
Karen, do you start to say something again?
No, it's okay.
Okay. If that's it, then I would entertain a motion to approve as edited. Larry Warble made the motion. Kara Gately seconded. All in favor?
6-0, Jennifer
6.
Leahy.
There's here.
Great.
Great. Now, up to the top of the agenda, again, a little bit out of order. The first item or the next item on our agenda is election of officers. How do we usually do this? Who chairs it while we're doing this? The secretary chair it?
Sometimes the vice chair would chair it and say, does anyone have a
Or
nomination?
the
for
senior
chair?
member.
Or the senior
Yeah.
member, either one?
Um,
Or a second senior member? Steve is senior. I don't
I'm
know.
a senior. I think the second senior is either Jim Rand or Jennifer. Yeah. Jim, why don't you take it over?
All right, as senior member or secretary, or don't we care?
Doesn't matter.
Do we ask for candidates, or should we just nominate the first person that comes into our mind, or what?
Either way, Jim, you can certainly make the nomination yourself, or you can ask for nominations.
And we do this, well, all right, let's do it this way. I move that Steve Olveni be considered as a candidate for the office of chairman. How's that?
a
Thank
second.
Thank you, whoever said that.
In fact,
Jennifer Leahy.
you're moving to elect him as chairman, aren't you?
What did I say?
To be considered for,
Okay, elected to the position of chairman.
Jennifer seconded that, I believe. Jennifer, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, I'm going to ask that we have Oh, how do we do this? Should we invite any other candidates that are interested in taking the job? Do I have any other nominations from the floor? Seeing none, I ask that all those in favor of Mr. Mulvaney continuing as chairman signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Congratulations.
6-0.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate
All right.
everyone's confidence. That was pretty fun. You want to keep going with?
Up to you, you're chairman.
Okay.
You can start with vice chairman.
All right, then I'll take it from here, Jim, since you just
All right.
told me as chairman. I would like to open up the floor for nominations of vice chairman. Is there any nominations for vice chairman? George Riley?
I'd like to nominate Jennifer Leahy to be the vice chair.
Okay, is there a second to that nomination? Jim Rand is the second to that Jennifer's nomination. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? No, seeing none. Okay, I would say that nominations are now closed. All those in favor of voting for Jennifer Leahy as our nominated vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? No opposed. Congratulations, Jennifer. You are now vice chair once again. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Chairman.
Next up, I would like to open up nominations for the secretary position. I would like to nominate Jim Rand as secretary. Is there a second to that?
Happy to.
George Riley, make a second. Would anyone else, is there any other nomination for secretary? Seeing none, I would make nominations of secretary closed. Let's take a vote. All those in favor of Jim Rand being secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Nope. There you go, Jim. Congratulations. Your name's gonna be in the paper for another solid year. It's very small, but it's in the corner. You're the only guy that proposes stuff. All right, the next item on our agenda is the adoption of the 2021 meeting schedule for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Jeremy gave us a draft of the Planning and Zoning Commission schedule. In part of this, ready up for this, Jeremy and I had a conversation about moving the start time of the meeting from 8 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. I'm sorry, yep, 8 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Part of the concept is to get us in earlier and get us out earlier. Historically, it was always at 8 o'clock because people had to commute, being people that are on the commission and also maybe members of the public. Not a whole lot of people commuting anymore. And I think any of us that are on the commission now can get here by 7:30. With that said, there is an unwritten rule that this would be, that our meetings always ended at 11 o'clock. If we move it forward, we don't want the meetings to still end at 11. That would make it an unwritten rule of 3.5 hours. That flies in the face of logic. I want to change the unwritten rule to an unwritten rule of 10 o'clock. Thinking we can get this stuff done in 2.5 hours. I think we all, after 2.5 hours of a meeting, I think we should be able to go home. And if we can start earlier, we can get out of here earlier. So with that said, this is the new schedule. Are there any questions, comments, changes? Pretty much probably the same.
Same concepts as past.
Same concepts, especially as I can tell you for a fact that Jeremy does look at all school holiday schedules, Christmas, Thanksgiving, spring break, winter break, all that
Jewish
stuff.
holidays.
Jewish holidays, Catholic holidays, any kind of holidays. So they're already factored into here. So without further ado, I'd entertain a motion to approve the schedule as submitted.
I would say as amended. You just amended till
Oh, yeah.
Pardon me?
No, it says 7:30.
No, it says 7:30
where?
In the
right
time.
here.
No, it's I thought you were gonna change
I
the
think what Tim's
Oh,
saying
no
is
later than.
later
Yeah.
than,
here, we're gonna amend it and say 10
Thank you,
p.m.
Jim Rand. Thank you,
Yeah.
Jim.
Yeah.
Mulvaney.
Wow, that would have been bad. I would have gotten to get to my first, what was it called? Your election promise?
Your unwritten rules, right?
Yeah, I guess it is written.
Mhm.
I must have lied.
Okay, so we'll change that before we file it with the town clerk.
Okay, so now that 11 PM is getting changed to 10 PM,
10:30,
Okay.
no, 10.
10,
10 PM.
yes.
Okay, any other changes to this? And so a motion to approve as amended, was that come from you, Jim? Yep,
he could.
seconded by Kara. Great, all those in favor? Aye, great.
6-0.
We now have a 2.5-hour meeting starting at 10, it's 7:30, ending at 10.
Yep.
The reason why it's important, because all the applicants have to know, because there's a deadline to this stuff. If they go too long-winded, then they gotta know. If it starts earlier, they gotta know. The next thing on the agenda is adoption of the 2021 meeting schedule for the Aquifer Protection Agency.
Point of
this-
order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Can the chairman please explain what the hell the Aquifer Protection Agency is?
You've been to the meeting for last 4 years.
Yeah.
You don't remember?
I can help you there, Jim. About 8-10 years ago, the Planning and Zoning Commission was also asked to become the Aquifer Protection Agency. There's a small portion of Darien that's has an underground aquifer. It's up in near St. John's Church, that area. There's very little development that goes on in the aquifer area in Darien because it's a small area and doesn't see a lot of redevelopment. But if it were, you'd have to review it, analyze it. So in this case, you do have to post a schedule every year. And for the past few years, we've put one meeting on the schedule, and that one meeting has been canceled. As you know, since you've been on the commission, you know the Planning and Zoning Commission has never had to meet as the Aquifer Protection Agency, but we are legally obligated to prepare a calendar, file it with the town clerk, and it is likely we will cancel the meeting and we won't even worry about it till next year.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Sure thing.
There you go. So entertain a motion to approve the meeting schedule for the Aquifer Commission? What is it called? Aquifer Protection Agency. Larry Warble, I think you get your hand up. I see a thumb. There you go.
For the
Jim
APA,
Rand, there you go. Jennifer Leahy seconded. Yep, all in favor? Aye.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Beautiful. All right, the first half of the agenda is done. The next item on the agenda is the subcommittee report. This is our Darien, I don't know if it doesn't even have a name, the subcommittee, it's just the subcommittee. We kind of sort of appointed a subcommittee to review those bills that are potentially in Hartford a few months ago, that came up a few months ago. The subcommittee has been working together and has drafted a report that they submitted to, I guess, the rest of us earlier this afternoon. And I didn't get to read the whole shoot match, but if someone from the subcommittee wants to be the spokesperson, I'd say take it away. Thanks, Larry. We're ready.
yeah, sure. So my email is down, so I don't have the document actually up in front of me. I can pull it up if we need to. But the three of us met several times over Zoom, talked through, primarily I guess we broke it down into two areas. One is a review of the previously submitted proposals in the legislature. We went through, called out what we thought were sort of the problematic issues or things that we should be most concerned about, and detailed those out. And the format of this document is a letter, right? So that Steve, we could at the front end make it to whoever's going to go to, and then add like signature information at the end from you. I think that was your request. Then we also went through the driving issues or items that are coming out of Desegregate Connecticut, which is really the driving force behind all this legislation, and a lot of the points that they've made have been the discussion points. We, as a committee, went through each one of those points and came up with, our feelings for it. I put it down into writing, and we all reviewed and agreed that this is our position.
Thank you.
So it's really at this point, I don't know what the next step would be. I imagine everyone in the larger group can take a look and potentially suggest an edit or two, and then we can, once we're comfortable with it, vote to approve. I guess is the way to do it.
Yeah,
Jeremy?
that's what I was hoping we would do.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I didn't really get to read the whole shoot match. So I would like to maybe, if we could talk about it as a committee, as a commission in general tonight, and then maybe vote to approve it at our next meeting. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, sure. Or
Steve,
Sure.
it's Jim. Just
Yep.
let me give you a couple of thoughts. I don't
Please.
think that anybody on the commission is going to be surprised at the contents of this thing. I mean, we've all seen glimpses, narrow or wide, of most of the proposed legislation. And I don't think that we've been, on the one hand, bomb throwing, or on the other hand, simply taking the easy way. But the one thing we haven't done, which I think it might be useful to discuss tonight, because it doesn't bear on the language of the letter, is what do we think we should do going forward? I mean, we've talked about next steps in the abstract, but I think given the amount of work that's gone into this, we should include in closing a recommendation as to what we think could be the useful next steps. And I know, we all know that Jamie's, I can't think of the word, involved or concerned or enthusiastic one way or the other about doing something about this. But I think that we ought to support her and our political leaders in taking some useful steps. I don't propose to suggest what they might be, but we might talk about it amongst ourselves.
Okay. Kara, Jennifer, did you want to speak to this at all since you're on the committee before we ask Kara to chime in?
You said me or Kara? Sorry.
Yeah, Jennifer, did you want to speak before Kara? Just because you're on the subcommittee?
No, I'm excited. I'm happy to see more, there's more people that are listening in tonight.
Right.
But I think this is a good first step. And just for the public to know, this new iteration of whatever bill's going is going to happen in January. So there is time for input before January.
Okay, agreed. I mean, I'm not a legislator by any stretch of imagination, but I'm told that these things try to get their position on the legislative calendar. If they get put on the calendar, then they become live. If they don't get put on the calendar, then they get pushed to the next calendar. Right? I think
I'm not
that's
sure either how it all works.
Yeah, we're not.
Just so everyone knows, like, that it is like 2,000 of these that get to either try to be put on the calendar, and at the end of the year, by May or June, when everything dies except what gets passed, there's only 2 or 250 that actually make it that far.
Great. That's my understanding too. Okay, Kara, you're up.
Well, I mean, we'll put aside, right, because we can't predict and we don't know what's going to happen with legislation and where it's going to go. But this has been put on before, been revised. There's more than one bill. The 3 bills will probably be consolidated, changed, amended, become parts of some will probably, survive and be consolidated into a single bill that has, broad support and coalition support. But regardless of that, I think our position needs to be about, not sort of being negative. And I'm not saying this is, but I'm just saying, I think we need to have a statement that's recognizes things that are troublesome to us and troublesome to the town that we were elected by the, stakeholders and citizens here to, carry out certain things. But there's also things that we have done as a body and done as a town to meet many of these things and acknowledge a lot of the conditions and problems that are trying to be remedied or addressed both by the advocacy groups and by the legislation. So I think any statement that we publicly put forward should acknowledge, right, the efforts the town has taken, that the town, through those efforts and through proactive, revisions to regulations that the town has already taken and will continue to look to take, that shows that local control is not only what's been, quintessential New England, but also that works. And we can evidence that in terms of, the changes to regulations we've already done, the strides we've made, and the efforts the town has undertaken to increase our affordable housing inventory. And so I think any document we put together should acknowledge those things, while also then just focusing on the things that we feel most strongly are troubles or pose problems. I think protecting our environment, protecting local control, all those things are just as important as the goals of increasing diversity in housing and increasing, opportunities and, ability of all different kinds of people to, live in a town with beautiful open spaces, beautiful natural resources, a vibrant downtown, and great schools. So I think maybe I would envision, the document talking, sort of, incorporating those points as well. And I also think we should look at, and I think I've, spoken to some people about this already, there's things we can look at in our own regulations, not on a application by application basis, but looking at things as a whole and seeing, are there things in our own regs that we can revise or update that would, but in consultation and looking at what other towns and municipalities have done and in what the advocacy groups are seeking to see, okay, maybe there are changes and revisions we can make that would, keep us moving forward with the rest of, the state, that may be valuable to the town and our residents. And so I think we should think about those things as well, aside from this document, right? I think in terms of what Joe was talking about, like, where do we go? I think we should look at those steps and then also look what we've done and what we can continue to do.
Okay. Thinking out loud, I would like to look at this again and formalize it in one way, shape, or form internally from the town. What my thoughts in my head right now are either the Planning and Zoning Commission writing a letter to the file, write a letter to Jeremy, or write a memo, or also even, I think the better thing would be to write a letter from the Planning and Zoning Commission to the first selectman. And then this way it becomes a document that kind of goes from the commission to the chief executive officer. It said our subcommittee looked at this. We could just switch this to a letter, send it to Jamie's office, and then it becomes really a public document and it's backed by the entire Planning and Zoning Commission. If you do a memo to the file, I think has less weight. I think a letter might be better.
To me, that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah.
Give everyone a few days to read this over. We'll come back next week, fine tune it, whatever. And if it looks good, we'll
Right.
format it as a letter and have you sign it on behalf of the entire commission it might be. Dear Ms. Stevenson, here you go.
And send it to Jamie Stevenson. Because
Can you-
I haven't really read it in total yet, but I don't think we want to, edit it too much if it's internal to the town. If it goes to a senator or a congressman or something like that,
It's a
that's a
public
different.
document. I think we do need to.
We do need to what?
I mean, I just got this tonight, but I think if we're sending it to Jamie, it's a public document.
Correct. Oh, agreed. 100% agreed. Right.
Yeah.
If it needs to get edited a little bit, that's fine. But I want the Planning and Zoning Commission to quote unquote sign off on it together.
Okay, well, I need to-
Steve,
Yeah,
do you
Jim.
intend to take public comment?
Yeah, that's where, we can either do it after we send it to her or before we send it to her, if that's the thing. I would like to have a public hearing on this, yes. Tonight is a general meeting item. It's not a public hearing, so we're really not going to have the public chime in tonight. But I would like to put this on the record as a public hearing after the subcommittee noodled with it. Then it goes, like I said before, then it goes to the whole commission. We look at it. The other 3 members of the commission that are not on it are allowed to, add or subtract. Jamie Stevenson is an ex officio member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, so she doesn't have a vote. She has a say as a first selectman. So that's it. I don't know if you first the commission figures out their plan and then make it a public hearing, or you make it a public hearing and then the commission finalizes their plan. I think the commission's got to finalize their plan before you go to a public hearing. Like if you look at something tonight, we're going to get a signed letter from an engineer, a signed letter from a peer reviewer. It's a signed solid letter. It's not a draft. He said, this is my position, and then you can sit there and argue about it. That's the tact I would like to take.
We're not hired.
I'm open to suggestions.
Steve, we're not hired consultants, right? We're elected public officials, so I think we should
Right.
hear from the public.
Back pay, I'm confused.
And I'm sorry, Jen, were you saying something?
I was making a joke that when she said we weren't, I was wondering what, I thought back pay was good, but
I just want to chime in and not respond, but echo what Kara said. And we tried to get as much data into this document to show the things that we have been doing. Jeremy was great on that. So as we talk through each of the bullet points, if you will, of the driving themes, part of our response is what we've already done in those areas. So you'll see about how much the town already has access to multifamily housing. We have 9 zones that actually have access to multifamily housing. And just the number that have been built, you've seen that data before. So we tried to get all that in there so that we had it in there. If anyone is aware of others that we could also layer in, that'd be great.
Let me suggest as a practical matter, everybody on the commission now has a copy of the draft.
Yep.
I think if all we do is agree to sit down and discuss this next time, it could potentially be a long discussion, which doesn't resolve much. I'd like to suggest as one possible course of action, all of the commissioners read the thing and send back to Larry or to me or to Jennifer specific comments if you have them. So that when we get together to discuss it, everybody's views have already been sort of well thought out, because you have to think them out if you're going to propose a change or a revision or a fact that should be in here and is not in here. Then we can discuss it next meeting and put it to bed.
Yep.
And beyond that, maybe then we hold a public hearing and say, this is what we're sending you have any comments, or I don't know how that's going to be handled, but I think that the public deserves to have at least a hearing on this thing.
Yes.
If they don't elect to give a lot of input, that's fine, but at least they have an opportunity to see it and hopefully understand it when it goes to officially when it goes up the stream.
Great. I
And
mean,
then also, I'm sorry, just to clarify too, and Jeremy, there's also 2 attachments to the document as well. One is a map that Fred created showing what what sections of the town are actually in range of being half a mile from a transit center or a quarter mile from a business zone. It's a pretty compelling map. And then also there was a table that Jeremy had put together, which just shows many of the changes we've made over the last 20 years to our zoning practices that are kind of moving in the right direction here. So both of those are referenced in the letter and their attachments. So Jeremy, I don't know if those attachments went out with your group email. If they didn't, we can just make sure we add those as well.
Can you resend them, please, Larry? I didn't see them.
yeah, okay. What about the other chart that we did with the planning, with the housing over the past 20 years? Does that?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what chart Larry's referring to, so I'd have to see it before knowing.
Appendix A.
The map. The map of,
We're probably playing some boomerang here, Jeremy, because I think it was something you created and sent me. So I'll dig it up and figure out if the right.
It says the attached chart Appendix A shows changes in area made over the last 20 years with change in zoning to include inclusionary housing and redevelopment project.
Okay, we'll dig it up.
So, I mean, I think what we're doing is exactly what we said at the outset. 3 people on the subcommittee get together, they put their ideas on paper, give it to the rest of the commission. Then the commission, assumingly that the 3 people on the subcommittee reviewed this, approved it, and said, put forth to the 6 to the whole commission. Now the whole commission gets to read it. And then once the whole commission decides it, then we can, like I said, finalize it, and then move it up the ladder where it goes from there. We can bring it up to the public, and then the public approves it. But I think the subcommittee approved this. The commission's got to approve it, and then we send it to the town approve it. But it's got to be in some kind of form that's got a signature on it, letterhead, that doesn't say draft.
Correct.
Great. Okay.
Can I interject a few thoughts?
Of course you can. This is really, really important. I would talk about this for an hour if we could.
Yeah, cool. Just a few things in no particular order, I suspect, but just to comment with all due respect to Commissioner Rand's comment about kind of working with, coordinating with something or other with Jamie Stevenson, the first selectman. I want to highlight that we are independently elected. We are a body unto our own selves with the peculiar responsibilities concerning land use, which is, something that I think we need to consider. I have no problem. I haven't heard anything from Jamie on this topic. I may have missed something. Happy to talk with her, happy to hear from her, etc. But just that we should coordinate with her, I'm not sure is quite the right thing. I think the letter is very thoughtful, very substantive. I think it's spoiled occasionally by some flame throwing when there is reference to extreme radical proposals and extreme proposals and whatnot. It certainly is trying to take on desegregate Connecticut in a very frontal way that I think could be toned down a little. I think what may be missing is a statement by us in the nature of perhaps a goal that, whether we should create a goal perhaps of ensuring that there is no racial or socioeconomic segregation resulting from any intent of the planning and zoning land use decisions. I mean, I recognize, it's difficult for some folks to live in certain parts of this town, but anyway, I think it is a goal. I mean, I think desegregate Connecticut has a point. And, you know, that point I think is a laudable one. It's how they're getting there that I think most of us have trouble with. I think we ought to send this to the legislators. We want them educated as to what Darien is thinking. So when they are considering their votes, I think they should have seen this letter. I hope we'll move forward on ADUs, those accessory dwelling units. As the letter indicates, we're already considering, we ought to, you know, move forward with that so that we are taking some action. And I don't think, in my own quick read of this, I don't think there was reference to the fact that one of the proposals is that P&Z commissioners no longer be elected. And the letter might want to address that as something that we think, you know, taking away local control, taking away our ability for the town folk to elect their land use representatives seems
So George, I think we missed that in the reading of the bills then, because I hadn't seen that specific proposal.
Yeah, we
okay.
missed-
That
If we
did
can
come
find a
up.
reference to it, I would absolutely want to
Yeah,
address it.
I know I heard it in one of the webinars. I heard it from Tim Hollister, thank you. So yeah, it's definitely out there. Whether it's in a bill or not, that I don't know. I haven't read the bill,
Okay.
so I think it
I
might be
heard
worth.
that too. I did hear it too.
Okay, thanks. That's my stream of consciousness for the moment.
Yeah, I think along with what you said, George, is I agree with it. We have our own, you know, our own set of rules. We're elected officials just like the first selectman is and the board of selectmen is. That's why I think I'm kind of suggesting that we take our document and send it to the first selectman's office.
Oh,
It's our
sure.
document. It's not theirs. It's ours.
Yes,
You know,
but
you
I'm
can do whatever you
suggesting
want.
broader too.
Yeah, no, agreed. Who else do we not hear? Do we hear not from anybody? We heard from everybody, right? Okay. All right, so let's give the other three commissioners and I guess even the three commissioners on the subcommittee a homework assignment to look at this again. I would suggest we submit the edits to Jeremy's office. Isn't that easy?
However you want to handle it.
I'd rather have it circled through you just for, you know, freedom of information stuff. So if I mean, I'm an old fashioned guy. I write, you know, notes on pieces of paper and edit it myself. So I would read it, copy it, scan it, and then send it into Jeremy's office. And maybe add something there. Other lawyers and people are better with PDFs and redlining and stuff like that. I don't know, Kara and George, if you guys like to redline and want to do it that way, because it's a more lawyerly thing, that's fine. You could also convert it to a PDF, and now my reviewer redlines a PDF. I don't know how the hell you do that, but he knows. He does what he does, and I do what I do.
George, you
But-
dying to get it together?
It's not like you just hit accept all.
You can't learn.
5 people's red lines. Yay, fun.
Yeah, so I don't know. So I mean, at the bottom line is to the subcommittee. Thank you very much for everything you did on this. I mean, it's 6 pages. It's more than I thought it would have been.
Very so. Yep.
I think it's very, very comprehensive from the part that I did read. I also do like to add in the clause that kind of I think George alluded to is that I think part of the desegregate where this whole thing started is it started where the state of Connecticut is a segregated state and they blamed it on the planning and zoning commissions. You know, I don't think that's the case. You know, and it's not any of our zoning codes that I know. There's no intent, in my knowledge, to do any segregating of anything. You know, if that sentence got it added in here, I think that's a great idea. But
recognize that historically there are issues that presently we have no intent. So I think there is a recognition we need to make, but certainly as elected officials, we have no intent to keep segregation.
Agreed. And this is 2020 we're talking about, maybe 2019, maybe 2021. And you know, I read Wikipedia about Darien, which is 50 years ago, 100 years ago. That's not Darien today. None of us were around. I mean, Kara, you lost me a little bit a couple of weeks ago when you talked about Levittown. I remember Levittown, and I played lacrosse against those guys in Levittown. I
Live
thought
right
it
next
was a
to it.
great town.
I
It
think
is a
that
great
may,
town.
Something
No, I
bad
was,
about
I
Levittown?
was, Steve, for the record, I was not besmirching or saying anything negative about Levittown today,
No, no,
yesterday.
no, I get it.
The
I get
reality
it.
is, right, there were deed restrictions put when Mr. Levitt developed farmland on Long Island, and that was part of the deal. It had to be it was deed restricted, right? That was ruled unconstitutional in 1963. Like, so it's still in the deeds because by most state laws, you can't change it. But I was not saying anything negative about Levittown. I love Levittown.
Agreed. I mean, and my other thing that I was go back to is I'm a licensed broker in the state of New York and the state of Connecticut. So is Jennifer Leahy. I don't know if you're a licensed broker or a salesperson, but there are brokerage laws that you lose your license if you do something about that. You know, I don't spy and sell, but there's laws against that. I don't think it has to go with the planning and zoning code, but I think what George meant as a goal, I think is a great idea.
But again, I just want to make sure that there are people with licenses that in many of our memories were not doing what they were supposed to. And we appreciate that and we recognize that. And then that is not what we plan to do. And it's not our intent. And we do not, there's no segregation, any intent to segregate on this commission, even if in recent memory, there was some of that going on, even with licensed professionals locally and in other towns around here. I think it's important to note that, and that is not our intent. Because it does, we all know that this goes on, and we're, like George said, our intent is to make Darien inclusive, and it is what we do already, but to make sure that we're doing it effectively and that we, like, accessory dwelling units, that we're doing things that we can to include as many people as possible in our wonderful town.
Agreed. You don't get an order from me. Okay, with that said, does anybody have anything else before we move on to the next item on the agenda? Relatives? Great. Okay, thank you, subcommittee. We'll read it, get notes back to probably Jeremy and CC the rest of the people. I think it's great. It's not the first start, it's the second or third start, though. I think you guys did a great job. Appreciate it. Okay, any other business requires 2/3 vote to the commission? Next meeting. I have something else that I want to talk about at the end of the meeting. I don't want to take up time now. So if we're allowed to move that to after Jeremy's saying
Sure,
yes.
at the end of the hearings, you could just make a motion to go into other business.
Okay, do I have to go back into a general meeting now?
You got the votes
All right.
for that?
I don't know, it depends. It's like if it's 5 to 11, we're not gonna have any votes. If it's 5 after 11, we're not gonna have any votes either for that, because I wouldn't get my vote. All right, that is the conclusion of the general meeting. It may get restarted up after the public hearings, but let's go right into the public hearings. Thank you. So our first item on the public hearing agenda is continuation of special permit application number 315, landfilling and regrading application number 486, Robert Thorson and Sarah Thompson, 170 Ridge Acre Road. Proposal to construct a 50 by 90 recreational sports court and retaining wall on a portion of the property and to perform related site development activities. The 3.73 plus or minus acres subject property is located on the north side of Ridge Acres Road, approximately 200 feet east of its intersection with Brickside Road, and is shown on Assessor's Map number 4 as lot 38 in the R2 zone. Jeremy, what do we got?
Sure, you may recall that this was on the agenda a few weeks ago and the public hearing was continued, which gave the applicant and the property owner time to work on a revised plan. And what you have before you, the plans dated October 28th and 29th, and a cover letter dated October 30th, is revised plan showing a proposed sport court next to the barn. I think it's on the east side of the existing large red barn on the property. This is a revised location. In the original location proposed, it was to the west of the barn, and some neighbors had concern. So the property owner was kind enough to work with Chris Elko and his engineer Brian Muller on proposing the sport court for the east side of the barn with some drainage system underneath the proposed 45 by 60 sport court, which will account for any water runoff. There's very little to help screen it. As you know, there's a requirement that it not only meet the setbacks, but there be landscaping around it to minimize sight and noise. You do have revised plans. Chris Elko is here on behalf of the applicant and Elise Landscaping to describe the proposal, but it's just one of a typical sport court for home use. No lights are proposed.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is your microphone on?
No, it's
Okay.
only going through.
Okay, because I muted mine for 2 seconds when you were talking. I apologize, everybody. The reason why Jeremy muted was because I hit the button. Okay,
So Chris Elko is here on behalf of the applicant.
Hi,
Chris
good evening.
Elko, welcome. Take it away, sir.
Hi, my name is Chris Elko for Elise Landscapes and Nursery, representing Rob Thorson and Sarah Thompson. As Jeremy described, we have an application in front of the commission for a sports court, a residential sports court. The property is located at 170 Ridge Acres Road. It's a corner lot. I'm scrolling down to the engineered plans now. The original application was on the southwest portion. After comments from neighbors and re-looking at the site and talking with the client, we proposed moving the sport court to the southeastern portion of the property and reducing the size. So the current proposal is for a 45 by 60 foot sport court. It's within the setbacks. The current site, I'll scroll down to some photographs that we have of this. Bear with me. The current site is mostly lawn. Trying to reduce this, sorry. So it's mostly lawn. There, it is bisected by 2 large holly hedges. The sport court would encroach slightly into the woodland. On the eastern portion, we would propose taking down 1 small tree. It's a 16-inch red maple, some shrubs. As part of this, we'd also be transplanting this holly hedge. This is looking from the property towards Ridge Acres Road. Let's scroll down. You can see these are the 2 large holly hedges that we're proposing to transplant. This is the view currently from Ridge Acres Road, and the holly hedges here would be moved closer to the road in order to screen from all the neighbors driving by the sports court. It's probably about 6 to 7 feet tall, and this gives a slightly better view of that. Let me scroll back up. So as part of the application, we did hire Brian Mueller as the engineer, put through all of the engineering that was required. I believe the town engineer has looked at this and we're in compliance with what he was looking for on that. It's a more traditional sport court. Originally, we had more of a porous sport court proposed, but we've decided to go with a more traditional sport court in this area. Part of the application is including a small retaining wall, tree well to protect this red oak on the edge. Along with the holly hedge, we would be regrading and scrolling down to landscape plan. We would be putting lawn back where there's currently lawn around the outside edges for access, but then on the eastern portion where it is a little more shaded and a little more sloped, currently we propose ostrich fern or ferns that would act as a ground cover and protect the slope from erosion. Any questions from the commission? Anything I missed?
I think that's pretty good so far. So you're putting the court in where you're protecting those 2 trees?
We're
Well, that's
protecting, yes,
There's two primary trees, one that's at 180 and one, well, that's a height, right?
Yeah, it's just the one
yeah,
tree
that,
on the east side
yeah,
of the court.
that's a topo line.
That's this one.
But we would be protecting that tree from, and actually most of the, I'll scroll back up for the drainage, the site plan. So most of the access is actually going to come from Ridge Acres by the barn. There's an asphalt driveway here now, so we have easy access without going near the septic system or across the lawn. So we're protecting this tree, which is a large stately oak. This other oak is right along the ridge, the wood line, and we would be protecting that with a tree well. So we'd maintain as much as we could of the coverage.
Yep, and then you put the context underneath the sports court,
Correct.
and White Company Club did it with their basketball court. I mean, with their tennis court. And then you can park at the barn, you can go through the barn to the court. I got it. Makes sense. And then the hedges in front are gonna block you from the road on the one side, but can you see it from the other side because you're on a corner?
No.
Not really.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of woodland I'm scrolling across. You know, it's set back, so this area is lightly wooded, but it's really hard to see through the woods there.
Yep.
This is doing 90% of the coverage right here. That's where you're closest to the road.
Right. Cool. Okay. I would open up to the commissioners. Any commissioner have a question relative to this? Carrie Gately, you're up first.
So first question, and I did drive there, but like right now I can't get my bearing. I'm not good spatially. It's a corner lot, you said. So what's the corner? What's the other street?
Ridge Acres continues around and heads north. And then,
Yep.
to be quite frank, I forgot the name of the road that heads south. This is an intersection here. We're probably about 150 feet or so away from Brookside Road. So it's one of the first lots inside Ridge Acres.
Okay.
I think both roads are actually Ridge Acres Road. It loops around.
Correct, yes.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I thought, but that's why I think I'm getting confused a little bit. And you spoke about, and it just popped in my head because you said, I know the plans have changed a bit, location and like sort of, there's been some changes in terms of like lights being removed and originally, you said originally it was a more porous court, but now they've changed, it's gonna be a more traditional. So what does that mean exactly in terms of like impervious materials and potential, water or flooding issues, or, what sort of does the difference between the two materials mean?
Well, originally we were looking at more of a porous gravel substrate, but we couldn't, from the manufacturer, definitively say there was a rubber membrane that we couldn't definitively say how porous that was. So the town engineer was going to require the Coltex system or a drainage system anyways to support that. So what we did was we were just giving the client options with more traditional substrates such as concrete, where tiles would go on top. So the drainage is designed for the 50-year flood rain event as per town requirements, and would capture and retain all of that water within those Coltex units, and then they would slowly dissipate. So there shouldn't be any flooding on the eastern portion. So it actually pitches from west to east. And along the eastern portion, there's a trench drain that would help capture the water and direct it into the drainage system. So there shouldn't be any off-site water at all.
And my last question, only because it looks like it's surrounded mostly by residential neighbors. I do know that Ridge Acre, I think some properties on one of the Ridge Acres Road bounds or abuts Cherry Lawn Park and, open space and sort of woodland area. So is this close to that? Because it's hard for me to tell from the plans I have.
No, it's not. Currently, there's residential house to the north, across the road to the south, and then across the road to the east and west. So no, we're not close to the Cherry Park.
Thank
Let
you.
us know.
Yeah, it's like a half mile up, Kara.
Yeah, thank you. I know someone, yeah. Thank you.
Welcome.
Jim Rand, Larry, going around the horn.
I have nothing.
George? Okay. George or Larry?
I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm
okay.
okay. Yeah.
Okay. George, anything?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. With that said, open up to the public. Great. Is there anybody, Fred, if you're there? I can't see anymore. Any of the
Got it.
public domain like to speak to this application?
Upstairs, Wayfair's in my closet. Go get Wayfair.
I don't have anyone, Steve.
Okay,
I know, just for tonight.
that's Jen. Okay. Okay, so nothing for the public. We didn't get anything from Darren Astafine or any memos. Like, well, that stuff's already taken care of.
It's already been addressed, is my recollection.
Because they
Correct,
did,
Fred?
they did it before. Okay,
With the drainage.
with that said, then we can take a motion to a close.
Close the hearing
Yes, that's
and
correct.
deliberate.
All of Mr. Ostafine's comments were addressed by the applicant to his satisfaction.
Fantastic. Looks like they moved the whole thing too. All right, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing. George Riley made that motion, I think. Yep. Larry Warble seconded. Yep. All those in favor? Okay, hearing is closed. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
We'll deliberate on in a couple weeks.
Yeah, probably November 24th would be my guess.
How many more meetings do we have this year?
At least 2.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Next item up for bid.
6 Contentment Island Road.
Yep. Also site plan review number 50D is David, flood damage prevention application number 39D, landfill and regrading application number 271A. Stephen and Lisa Eppley at 6 Contentment Island Road. Proposal to remove a portion of the existing paved driveway, and to replace it with lawn and construct a retaining wall to create a level yard and perform related site development activities within regulated areas. The 0.81 plus or minus acre subject property is located on the west side of Contentment Island Road, approximately 230 feet south of the intersection of Tokenique Beach Drive, and is shown on assessor map number 67 as lot 64 in the R1 zone. This is a site that's pretty much kind of next to the entrance to Tokenique Club. You go past those two concrete pillars, and it's on the right-hand side in the backyard. Is it Scott's Cove?
Yes, Scott's Cove is in the backyard. This is right when you pass the tennis court on the right-hand side. This Mr. Eppley's driveway is currently partial. It's a circular driveway with part of it paved and part of it gravel. And what they want to do here is take away the pavement and replace it with a lawn. The entire property is in the flood zone. So certainly we have a situation here where they're in the coastal area near Scott's Cove. They're doing some work in the flood zone, and they're doing a minor amount of regrading. What they're basically doing here is getting rid of part of their circular driveway and putting lawn area there. So it's kind of an unusual circumstance, and they're actually increasing the amount of lawn, albeit they're doing a little bit, I think a foot of fill in the most. Jeff McDougall's here to talk to us a little bit about proposed amount of fill, associated retaining wall, which will be right along the, I'll call it the northern and eastern corner of the site. And it's a small amount of fill and a small amount of regrading compared to most of the projects the commission sees these days. I'll let Mr. McDougall take it from here.
Yeah, Jeremy, you've covered that pretty well. It's kind of an unusual application here when you're looking at taking away a driveway and replacing it with a lawn area. And I think this will be beneficial to the area in terms of drainage runoff from that driveway onto Contentment Island Road. The plan has been revised based on some comments from neighbors. Some support had been added to the retaining wall at at the request of the neighbors' engineers. They had discussed this with Mr. Epley, and he had agreed that yes, they could install some concrete blocks which will help to stabilize the retaining wall along the area of the fill. We have John Martucci is here. He can address any of the engineering issues. I believe there was also some comments that Planning and Zoning received regarding a pipe across the road from 3 Contentment Island that the pipe is basically tidally influenced. The water does have a tendency to go both directions. That pipe has been replaced when the Epley residence was constructed with a better pipe than what was there. So I'm not sure, John, if you have more comments that you'd like to add on this.
Not really. It's a simple project. We're going to remove some pavement and a short retaining wall, just 2 feet high, maybe 30 inches at the most, and just to make a flat lawn area. We're improving water quality just because we're getting rid of pavement. We're decreasing runoff because we're getting rid of pavement, and that's about it.
Is this retaining here new too?
Yeah, part of that is new. Part of that's new. John, will this have any impact on flooding in the neighborhood?
No. I mean, on a very small scale, it will reduce, it'll reduce runoff. It'll improve water quality. It's removing about 2,000 square feet of pavement and placing about 115 cubic yards of fill.
You said 152 yards of fill?
115.
115, yes.
115, yes.
How many truckloads is that, John?
7 or 8.
7 or 8, okay. That comes over a couple days?
Oh, sure. Probably 1 day.
What? No, you mean all seven or 8 trucks in 1 day, or 1 per day? I missed that.
No, I think it could be done in 1 day, easy enough. Have a truck, a small bulldozer to spread.
He's saying it every half hour.
Really, you do this?
That's where they get the oil and things like that, I would imagine.
Got it.
Yeah, this is Kent Epley. I don't know if I can jump in here.
Of course you can, sir.
But yeah, I'm the homeowner. So, and I'm a builder too. But actually with the blocks going in now, those blocks against the retaining wall to help support the fill, you're really probably down to 5 trucks and easily could come and go in a day and be done for the fill. Each truck holds about 20 yards of fill, and we're going to be displacing some with the concrete blocks that'll go to support the fill on my side of the wall.
And as I think Fred emailed a letter from Miss Ligori, who lives at number 3 Contentment Island Road. That went out via email late today, and Mr. McDougall has responded to that letter by noting that in her letter she refers to a pipe which is no longer there. Is that correct, Jeff?
No, the pipe, I'm sorry, the pipe is there.
The pipe is there, but was replaced. I'm sorry.
It was replaced with a new pipe. So basically the pipe that's under there now was done when this project was done 6 or 7 years ago. So that's essentially a new pipe, and actually it'll be easier access to it if you need it, which you probably won't in our lifetimes, because basically it's under some grass now instead of under pavement.
Okay, great.
Mr. Ligori should be on here too, and we've chatted. And
yep. I am on. So my comment would be, we're the neighbors directly across the street. Yeah, we've discussed it and we're supportive of them going ahead with the change of the driveway through the lawn. Our basic intent was to have some public record that there's a pipe that we may need access to at some point in the future. That's not on their plot map and not on our plot map. But the pipe's been there for probably 50 years or so, in case we ever need it. So that was really our only issue. We don't object to the project per se.
Just looking at this survey that was done by LPM Engineering, I don't see the pipe identified on this survey.
It's not on this.
That's correct.
That's Mr. Martucci's plan,
Great.
but Jeff, I don't think it's on the survey, is it?
No, we have never had that pipe on the survey. It never was an issue. It was not something that, ever came up in discussions in the construction of the house and all. It was way over on the northern side of the property there. Really had no impact on the construction. And as Kent indicated, they replaced that pipe as part of the construction with a better pipe than what was there. The PVC pipe that's there is, I think John can speak to the fact that you probably have a better flow of water through that pipe than you would through the reinforced concrete pipe.
Great. The only thing I'm asking is can we have John Martucci put it on his plan, which is in the file? Can you just put it on here? I mean, I know it's not a survey, it's just a site plan, but if you could add it on here so we know where this thing is, that'd be.
Sure. Between Jeff and I will figure out where it is and where it goes, and I'll show it on the plan.
Yeah, we'll add it to it.
Yeah, this is dated October 12th.
That was our only reason for bringing up the comment.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And then John, just on your plan that I'm staring at, there's the L-shaped wall, which is the new wall. It's not marked as new wall. And then there's a curved wall that's on Contentment Island Road. It looks like you're adding to it. Can you just mark that as new wall to be added?
The wall along the front of the property and along the road is labeled off to the right. It's labeled proposed stone masonry retaining wall. Where it goes north-south, it's labeled existing wall. Existing protection somewhere. Yeah, okay. Higher up along the north, the wall that runs east-west into the property is labeled as an existing concrete retaining wall. So we're just building the wall along the road, and then we're tying into a partial tree wall, landscaping wall that's already there.
Okay. You get this?
Yep.
Okay. Jeremy knows where it is. Okay, that's fine. So that looks like it's a tree well that's existing today?
Yes.
That curves towards the end? That's there today. Okay, got it. First time. So you just put the pipe on your survey? That I think makes everybody happy.
Sure.
We'll get that on there. Yep.
Do any commissioners, did any commissioner have any comments on this plan?
No.
Karen's waving no, George is no, Larry's no, Jim Rand's.
Jennifer Leahy is, there she is.
Yes, Jen. Jen's good, okay.
Anyone else from the public?
With that said, would anybody else in the public like to speak to this application? We heard from the neighbor across the street.
Mr. Ligori, yeah.
I'd like to say something.
Okay.
Please,
I'd like to make a comment, please.
Just identify yourself for the record, please.
I'm Christina Andrews. I'm the owner of number 2 Contentment Island Road and the wall that's running east-west between the properties.
Yep, gotcha.
I would just like to confirm how the new retaining wall will be connected to the existing wall.
You want to answer that directly for us?
I can answer that, John. So, I mean, essentially, it's a rubble stone wall, so it'll be built just with stacked stones, and it typically would just go and be mortared right to that. Like what's going to happen around the tree well, it's just going to match into it. It's not going to affect the wall at all or change anything with the wall that exists. It'll just go to it. Right, and that's the wall is the property line. Does that make sense?
So it will join to the existing wall?
Yes, it'll go right to that wall. So it'll basically, it'll touch it, the 18 inches will be the only thing that connects. I mean, I could leave that as an open joint if you wanted to. I'm not sure. If I'm not sure what the concern is there, but I'd be glad to do whatever you'd like.
I'm just concerned about the integrity of the existing wall. It's an old wall, as we know.
Yeah, and that's why the big cement blocks, and actually, Christina, when the paved driveway was done back when the project was done earlier, those blocks were put in. They weren't required at the time, but because we were parking there and obviously against the wall, those exist underneath the driveway. Obviously, the fill from the lawn is a lot less pressure. You're not parking vehicles up against it, but it actually, in certain respects, will, you know, a T in a wall is stronger than a straight wall. So, but I can do whatever you'd like.
I just don't want the existing wall to be damaged.
Yeah,
You wanna
no,
have a
not at
meeting?
all. If anything, it'll strengthen in that corner. But but again, glad to do whatever.
I'll just leave it.
Okay. So why don't you guys meet on site at some point in time, Ken?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Why don't you meet on site with Mrs. Andrews on, at some point in time?
That's not possible.
Yeah, I met with her engineer out there, and we talked about all this, and he thought it was a very good solution. You know, we're talking, you know, really less than 2 feet of fill. It tapers to zero, or almost zero. So it's not retaining a lot of grade. There's not a lot of additional fill, and the big blocks that are there, they're literally 18 inches high, 3 feet wide, 6 feet long pieces of concrete that will retain way more than the little amount of dirt it's needed to retain.
No, I understand that. I understand that the blocks will support the retaining wall, the existing wall. It's the joint of the new wall that you're constructing in the front to the existing wall. I'm just trying to understand, there's nothing on the plan that explains how the new wall will, if it will, join to the existing wall.
Yeah, I mean, typically, like I said, it would be a mortar, you know, just some cement that would go to that. But there is like an expansion joint material that we could put there so that it doesn't, in theory, touch your wall, if that's what you're looking for. I'm not sure what that'll really do, but if that's, you know, just so my mortar's not on your wall, if you'd like me to do that, I'd be glad to do that.
I just want to make sure that there's no damage to the existing wall.
Yes,
Hey, John,
100%.
Yeah, Ken, I would suggest you do that. Make it
Okay.
a mortar, make it a expansion joint.
Okay, that's easy enough. We'll note that on the plan with the pipe.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mrs. Andrews. Would anybody else like to speak to this application? No, we got anybody, Fred?
Good.
No,
We're good?
doesn't appear so. No public comment.
Great. With that said, I entertain a motion to close this hearing.
Motion to close.
Karen and Jennifer, great. I'm all in favor, aye? Thank you. Great, wonderful. Thank you, folks. Good
Thank you,
teamwork.
commissioners.
All right, thank you, everyone.
And thank you, Mr. Andrews and the guy across the street. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is continuation of the public hearing regarding proposed amendments to the Darien zoning regulations, COZR number 4 -2020 business site plan application number 128B as a boy, special permit application number 314, 711, Inc., 306 Boston Post Road. I don't need to read the rest of it,
Right.
the wording. So this is our third night on the public hearing, I think, of this application.
That's correct.
And we got a bunch of different materials to us this week. There's a couple of traffic reports, some zoning stuff. I mean, some letters and documents from the police department about traffic. I don't know if there's any site plan stuff. What's the order of business, Jeremy?
Right, we have two memos from McMahon dated November 3rd. One is a Birch Road additional analysis, and one is peer review response to comments. I also included in your packets a November 4th memo with information from Police Chief Don Anderson and Captain Robert Shredders. And we also have another memo from me dated November 5th with other approvals for convenience stores, gas stations. I think what we wanted to do tonight is try to focus a lot of our discussion on, Amy Sushins is here on behalf of the applicant, but we're going to focus a lot on traffic. Peer review engineer Mike Galante is here. He can summarize his letter, which was submitted for the record. His letter's date, 3-page letter, I believe it's dated November 9th. Should be in your packets. It's also on the town website. So I'll turn it over to Amy Sushins, and then she'll kind of cover a few issues, but then we have Mr. Galante here with us tonight, and I believe a number of members from the public who also wish to speak.
Okay, with that said for a second, without objection, Amy, this is some stuff I got on 7-Eleven. Move it, there, that's better. Just some signage suggestions that say 7-Eleven. I told to add these to the file for you guys to look at.
Okay, we can
There's
do
3
that.
pages, this one, there's that one, and then there's this one. I don't know where the sign is gonna lay out, but these are just some things I want to stick in the file, and maybe you can take a look at them and say, where's the national? I'm gonna give them to Jeremy. Okay,
We'll email them over to you on Thursday, Amy.
That's
you
fine.
can print them in color if you want to, I just put it black and white. Okay, Amy's gonna take over, you're the
Yes.
quarterback? All right, Amy, take it away.
I am. For the record, Amy Suchins, attorney at Hurwitz, Agrins, Westberg, and Nuff with offices in Milford, here on behalf of 7-Eleven. As you just outlined, Mr. Chairman, there were a number of documents submitted for the record, including the staff providing the other approvals for other stations, as well as the comments from the police department. What our plan is for this evening, as Mr. Ginsburg outlined, we have Mike Galante's comments that Jason Adams, our traffic engineer, has responded to, as well as the Birch Road traffic analysis that the commission members requested at our September meeting when we were here before you 2 or 3 weeks ago. We were still waiting for some feedback from DOT on counts and estimates. We've received that, and Mr. Adams was able to finalize his materials. So Jason will give you a presentation on that. And then at the other presenter that we have is Thomas Mills, who's the asset protection specialist for the New England and North Atlantic regions of 7-Eleven. There were a number of what I would characterize as safety and crime deterrence comments at the last meeting. So he is here, and we did provide a short 2-page brochure this afternoon that was sent to staff. I can share my screen if you have not had the chance to look at it yet. I'm just outlining a couple of things that he will highlight. And then those are our 2 presenters. If you have other questions as far as operations, deliveries, or other sort of specifics on that, we do have corporate representatives from 7-Eleven able to answer those questions. I recognize that we're starting a little bit late tonight, so I think that's best reserved if there are specific questions, given the sort of more fulsome traffic discussion that we hope to have. And then it's my understanding that Mr. Maslin wants to give a second presentation on behalf of the mobile station, the smart food applicant. So we'll see, I guess, if we get to that this evening. So with that, I can turn it over to Jason to talk to you about the traffic issues.
Amy, before you pass the baton, right now it's about 9:30, 9:35. So our meeting should go to somewhere around, 10:45, something like that. So it's about an hour and 10 minutes. In terms of your presentation, how much time do you think you have, knowing that the commissioners are probably going to ask some questions? Are you 15
right,
minutes?
and that's why I wanted to, frankly, the focus to be on the traffic discussions and the safety rate issues that were raised at the last meeting.
Right.
Jason, assuming no interruptions, and I expect that there will be questions and stuff, probably won't be more than about 10, 15 minutes. And then same with Mr. Mills, I expect him to be 5 or 10 minutes. So very short, and then we can just respond to questions as necessary.
Okay, and then Jeremy, just for set the field rate, is there any expectation we're going to close this hearing tonight? Or
No, we acknowledge that there's a number of interested people, and Amy and her team are still working on responding to a few things from Mr. Galante. So the hearing will have to be continued, but I think we want to get to certain experts tonight, like Mr. Galante.
Yeah,
right.
that's good.
And
That's
Mr.
good.
Chairman, I do think, when we get done, I can wrap up, sort of let you know where we wind up with what's happening with CBA, with ARB, wherever we wind up tonight with any issues that are outstanding. But yes, we understand we were, particularly given the rest of the agenda, we were not likely to close this evening.
Okay, that's fine. All right, I just want to make sure we don't have any crazy expectations. Okay, who's your first presenter, Amy?
Jason.
Yes, good evening. For the record, Jason Adams with McMahon Associates. I'll keep my overview pretty brief. I know we are short on time, and happy to participate in any conversation after that. So as has been mentioned, we did submit a response to comments to the original set of peer review comments from Hardesty and Hanover, and also submitted a memo reviewing the intersection of Birch Road at Boston Post Road. We have received comments back from Mr. Galante. I would term that those responses are fairly technical in nature, and we're happy to walk through those on a one-by-one basis. I think overall, the comments wouldn't substantively change the analysis that we presented, but again, we do know there are some outstanding issues specific to the traffic analysis. So what I'd like to do is just speak to the Birch Road intersection up front here. And I know that was a cause for concern from a couple board members. And as such, we did go out and conduct manual turning movement counts during the weekday morning and weekday afternoon peak periods. So we had someone out there in the field on Tuesday, October 13th. The traffic volume data was then reviewed with Connecticut DOT, which did take a couple weeks to get back some information from them, how best to account for the COVID pandemic. Where we arrived is that we essentially used the traffic volumes along Boston Post Road that were originally contained in our traffic impact study. So those are rooted in older historic Connecticut DOT data factored up to 2020 and beyond. And then we held the traffic volumes that were counted on Birch Road. And that formed the data set for our analysis. As part of our review, we did send an engineer out into the field to conduct a separate field visit focused on measuring vehicle delay and vehicle queues that currently exist on Birch Road. I know that was another concern, is just making sure that we have real data. The vehicle delay that we measured in that weekday afternoon peak hour matches up pretty well with the traffic analysis software that we use. So we feel that the data presented in that memo is an accurate representation of the operations of Birch Road. As we look at the traffic analysis completed with and without the proposed project, what it shows is that there's not expected to be a noticeable change in operations for vehicles entering or exiting Birch Road during the peak periods or throughout the day. During that site visit, we also observed the new crosswalk that has recently been installed by Connecticut DOT. That crosswalk is located just north of Birch Road, so in between Birch Road and the site. And it provides a designated crossing location for people along Birch Road. It's the closest crosswalk to the project site, so we feel that is an appropriate destination for any pedestrians that would be traveling from Birch Road or from the opposite side of Boston Post Road to travel safely to our project site. I know that concern between pedestrian connections in the Birch Road neighborhoods and the other side of Boston Post Road was brought up. So we did field measure available site distance at that crosswalk. We determined it to be located in an appropriate and safe location. And like I said, that was recently installed by Connecticut DOT as part of some of the other improvements along Boston Post Road. It essentially serves as the crossing location in the immediate vicinity of this site. I know another issue that came up in some of the previous meetings was if there was available data that speaks to changes in traffic patterns as a result of any app-based advertising. And there does not appear to be any data of that sort that is available industry-wide. Overall, I think it's important to note that there are many companies that are now using apps to draw customers to the sites, and therefore we don't consider that the apps would result in a substantive change to the expected traffic generation of the site. Certainly that could influence certain customers, but other customers may be seeking out a different alternative as a result of some other app. I know another point of discussion has been the site's close proximity to I-95, and certainly we do expect that traffic would be drawn from the highway. Trip generation data that was used as part of this impact study and the analysis that surrounds it does account for sites in all types of locations, including those that are in close proximities to highways like 95. But there isn't any specific information about how much traffic a site like this might generate from 95 as opposed to Boston Post Road or surrounding roadways. So overall, we feel as though the study has been prepared and presented according to industry standards and available data. And I know there have been some very specific points made about location and about apps and use of apps, but the fact of the matter is there isn't data that is available that can be applied to this site. So we're analyzing it in the best way possible within our industry. With that, I'm happy to go into more detail or just participate in discussion with the board.
I'm going to ask a couple questions in advance because I read the document I really focused on was the Birch Road addition analysis.
Sure.
And looking at your maps, but I know Michael Galante is the professional and he can, either contradict me or agree with me or whatever he's going to do. With regards to, I look at the before and after, the 2020 existing morning peaks and then the 2022 existing morning peaks in those graphics that you have in your study.
Yes.
I didn't read all the words. I looked at the graphics, and I appreciate you adding Birch Road to it. What my blanket overall question is I gotta believe that 7-Eleven is going to do a better job creating traffic on their site than Dutchess would. I mean, I've lived in Darien for 20 years. I've been to Dutchess 3 times. I get gas once a week. I don't live in this neighborhood, but I go to the gas station when I go to Dutchess. And I'm looking at the existing 2020 morning peak and then the 2022 morning peak. Coming out of Birch Road, the existing's 24 making a left onto the Post Road, and with 7-Eleven there, it goes from 24 up 1 car to 25. So during your peak hour in the morning, you think you're only going to get 1 more car that's going to make a left-hand turn going to Dutchess, going towards Norwalk?
Based on, you are reading that correctly. Based on, and the way that we assign those vehicle trips is based on the traffic volumes of the area. So in that weekday morning peak hour, as an example, the vehicles exiting Birch Road are about 50 vehicles as opposed to about 1,500 vehicles on Boston Post Road. So using the approach that we did, it does result in fairly low numbers, one or two trips on Birch Road, which I think is in line with the number of vehicle trips that we see on Birch Road. And that's not to say that on a certain day it could be 3 or 4 or 5 even, but generally speaking, we wouldn't expect there to be more than that 1 or 2 vehicle trips coming to and from Birch Road.
So what's that saying is that 7-Eleven's not really going to be a draw from people who live on Birch Road. They're going north. They're going to get 1 car at the peak time in the morning. Then with that said, the same thing. I'm looking at the one where you're coming out of. It's leaving the store. Let me make sure I get this. Yeah, leaving the store right now. The driving of my reading this rate. After someone leaves Dutchess, there's 54 cars gonna go from Dutchess to downtown Darien. And then when the new thing is built, there's gonna be the same exact number going out. So nobody in the morning that goes to 7-Eleven is gonna live in Darien.
So that's not exactly the conclusion to be drawn. I know this is a point, and if you want Mr. Galante to speak to it, the trip distribution between the Duchess and the 7-Eleven is certainly one of the outstanding issues. Our contention is that the trips to and from the 7-Eleven during peak periods are going to be driven more by pass-by traffic, which, as a matter of convenience, are going to be typically right turn in, right turn out. So there's a higher percentage of traffic assigned to our driveways that are right turn in, right turn out during the peak periods with 7-Eleven. Essentially, what we do when we have an existing site such as Duchess is we remove the vehicle trips associated with Duchess, because those trips are no longer going to be there. And then we add in the new trips associated with the project, in this case, the 7-Eleven. So while there may not be a change per se, there still are vehicle trips taking left from the 7-Eleven to head into downtown Darien.
I'm specific to make sure everyone's on the same page. I'm looking at figure 1 and figure 3. It's people getting their morning either coffee from Duchess or their morning coffee from 7-Eleven. And I'm going to ask Michael Galante to look at this, but I gotta believe that more people are going to go to 7-Eleven versus Duchess in the morning than because it's 54 and 51, it's the same exact number.
Agree.
If that's your opinion and that's your conclusion, that's your conclusion. I'm not, you're the professional, you make your conclusion. For me, it's hard to believe. I mean, I don't think you make any money if you don't get more people doing it, but that's a whole different story. So those are the two items that jumped off the page at me. We can ask other commissioners if anything jumped off the page before we turn it over to Michael Galante. The back and forth with regards to a letter peer review responses and comments, that's kind of sort of a back and forth to Michael Galante. He's going to say if he is satisfied or not satisfied. I know we did do another letter on November 9th. I didn't really have a chance to review that, but that's my comment relative to that. Does anybody and any other commissioner want to speak to these two? Kara's got her hand up. These two documents. Good, Kara.
So I guess, you keep saying there's no data to support this or there's industry standards, but why would they have an app to attract traffic and customers if there was no evidence or data to support that it would in fact attract additional customers?
I guess the way I would answer that is that they certainly are attracting, I would call them different customers. It's not to say that they're the same customer, right? That there are people that may have already gone to 7-Eleven without an app, and there are different people that may go to a 7-Eleven because of an app, but there similarly are other drivers that might go to a 7-Eleven without an app that now go to a different site because there's a different app, right? So like there's a give and take for different rewards programs and the information that is distributed to customers.
Okay, so you just said that just was going to have a non-effect on your traffic count and your expert opinion and your industry standards.
The way that I would phrase it is that we are generating the expected number of trips to this site in the most appropriate manner available to our industry. So again, I can't promise you that these numbers are exactly right. I don't think that I would be representing our industry well if I tried to tell you that exactly a certain number of vehicle trips are going to come in and out in any 1 hour. But what we're doing is we're trying to represent the most reasonable expectation of what this site would be expected to generate. And that could fluctuate seasonally, that could fluctuate day of the week, right? Like if there's a dip in gas prices, that certainly the site could be busier that day. But if all of a sudden a competitor up the street has a lower price, then maybe the trips to the site are lower on that day. And it's all kind of a balance and considered to be essentially an average condition that we're looking at.
Okay, next question. you said that you removed the Duchess trip counts when you were then doing the comparison for the expected counts related to 7-Eleven, but I don't know, I mean, if there's going to be, they have a special permit application that's going to have a convenience store, a restaurant, as well as a gas station, wouldn't keeping the Duchess customers or the flow in and out from Duchess, given that it's a quick convenience restaurant, which is part of this special application as well, shouldn't you have kept it in?
So the Duchess is a different land use. I understand the point of your question to be asking that some of the services provided by the Duchess do exist on this site, right? Like, so for certain people,
requested as part of their special permit.
Right, but the Duchess itself is a much more robust restaurant style service than what would be available on this site. That there are people that would specifically seek to go to Duchess. The food service on the 7-Eleven site is more of a complementary use. Certainly there could be people that go specific to that food service, but mostly we're looking to capture as much of that single customer as possible. So if you can have someone that is fueling up and visiting the convenience store and they want to get food or any combination of those type of items, that's more the line.
Maybe be a problem if we said take out the restaurant piece.
In terms of the trip generation of the project?
Well, I mean, you're saying it's just an accessory, sort of like, we're just trying to capture people really coming for the gas or really coming from one thing, and we're offering some other things, but it's not really part of it, and that's why we're not going to count the Duchess current customers, and that's how you're keeping the numbers kind of the same. But I don't know if that's really appropriate, given that part of their special permit application specifically is requesting a fast food style restaurant.
Yeah.
Right, and those numbers for the fast food style, they are considered within the trip generation numbers of what we're looking at. What I was speaking to more is that Duchess has a certain pattern of vehicle trip that arrives and departs the site, and that is going to be different than this 7-Eleven. Again, that's not to say that there couldn't be the same people, right? Some of the same people.
I'm not an expert in this, so can you explain to me how it will be different than what 7-Eleven with coffee and convenience food and fast food as well as gas will be different, the traffic generated than the Duchess generated?
If
so
I could just interrupt for a second, I think Mrs. Gately, what you're asking for is really what's an issue of how the ITE manual classifies each of the uses.
Can he answer it?
Yes, and I wanted to clarify to make sure that we understand that what your question is that you're asking for a clarification as to how the ITE, with all due respect, if you could let me answer the question and not roll your eyes at me while I'm giving you the answer that I'm asking for.
I asked the expert a question.
Yes, and I'm trying to explain to you as a layman that I'm trying to understand if your question is about how the ITE manual classifies each of these land uses as a fast food restaurant, all of which is in the traffic report, versus a convenience store and gas station.
That was not my question.
I'll try to take a crack at it. So our trip generation, when we're forecasting the number of trips expected to be generated by this site, does include a trip generation associated with that fast food portion. So that's a separate line item within our trip generation, again, based on industry standard rates. So we have separated out the fast food portion of the proposed site and added that to the proposed gas station and convenience store. So those are two different land uses that are analyzed within our study.
Okay. But I was sort of asking, you were saying it was different than what Duchess generated, and that was sort of what I was asking about, only because you raised it.
Right, and Duchess is certainly a much bigger restaurant use than what is proposed here, right? The size of Duchess, the brand name of Duchess, the following of Duchess, for lack of a better way of saying it, is different than a complementary auxiliary use at a 7-Eleven, right? That use does have its own trip generation, which is accounted for, but it is big. It's part of a bigger picture within the site that does include gas, that does include convenience. So all I'm trying to say is that the customers that currently travel to the site would not be expected to remain exactly as they are because the site is a different site.
Okay, so I have so appreciate that. So I did some research about Duchess because the use is interesting and I understand the restaurant. So in COVID, and obviously COVID's not forever, the restaurant use is down 75%, but it seems like 7-Eleven kind of going with what you said as far as discounts go. So 7-Eleven right now is doing a great job. Buy a muffin, get a free coffee, large $5 pizza, you know, for large $5 pizza with rewards, and then contactless payment. So sort of researching that, I don't see Dunkin' Donuts or kind of anywhere in Darien coming near these prices. So to your point, you know, the cost of service here, I don't see anyone, including Duchess, like this is going to be a very low cost, also contactless. There's going to be a lot of perks for here. Like I can do everything from my app. And the coffee comment is a little bit, I feel like maybe we're underestimating, and based on my usage of this app, like I can get, just like at Starbucks, I can get points with my purchases of beverages at 7-Eleven. And as someone who only goes to Duchess for beverages, 7-Eleven offers me a lot more. So I feel like I get what you're saying about the use, but I do think that coffee is such a big motivator for why one goes to 7-Eleven. And then also like a free muffin sounds great. And then also if I'm passing through, or I know a 7-Eleven's close and I'm not necessarily from the town, I'm going to stop at 7-Eleven over a local place because it is affordable. So I guess I have a little bit of a struggle, you know, taking out some of that, just because, like you said, when we're talking about cost, that's going to increase traffic. And no offense to Duchess, but I've never wanted to go to a Duchess. There's, you know, so I get it, like as a customer, you know, attraction, like I loaded this app because Amy had talked about it, and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And now I learned about this convenience, and I'd rather go to somewhere where it's convenient. So I guess I'm having a little bit of an issue of taking out numbers when it's just so easy, and I don't think the world will ever go back the same, even when COVID's over. I love to never interact with money and doing it on my phone, which Duchess, from what I've seen, doesn't have the same type of level of service or rewards, and I love saving money. So this is all does go in with traffic because we're bringing in those who like this, right? People come for Starbucks. So I don't know. I have a little bit of issue because I just don't think this is, you know, we have many levels of traffic that I just don't think are being really addressed, especially with Mike, the gas station Mike, who was talking about people coming for gas and then waiting in line, and then you go to park, you go grab your soda, oh wait, you're hungry. Like there's just a lot of timing that's a little bit different than Dutch's as well.
Yep, and I guess just to that point, and just to be perfectly clear, we are expecting that the 7-Eleven is going to generate more trips than the Duchess. We were speaking specifically to the left turn out movement during the weekday morning. So for sure, the 7-Eleven is going to generate more trips in those peak hours than the Duchess. That's not, we're not debating that. We're certainly trying to grab as much of a market share as can be, should we get permitted and be able to move in here. The point is more that from our perspective, you know, people are going to seek out convenient uses during the weekday morning and weekday afternoon peak periods. Those typical commuter peak periods, people are not looking to make left turns in general if they can be avoided, right? Like you're going to kind of customize your travel route to minimize those interferences in your travel path during those peak times. Now, at 11 a.m.
If
right?
you know, if you're aware, right?
You know, yes, and
that's,
you know, a lot of, right, but a lot of people travel, you know, going back to like when times were normal and people were commuting to work, you know, you have your path, you're figuring out where you're going to get your coffee or your breakfast, or you're just figuring out the quickest way to get from A to B. And the app certainly may make that adjustment for you. Certain days you go a different route, but I think people generally get accustomed to that travel pattern for themselves, and they seek to find ways to minimize the interference of things like waiting to turn left, right? So more people are going to turn right out of there. And speaking to convenience, and fully agree that as long as we can get something good out of this pandemic, like contactless purchases, I think we're all going to at least feel a little bit better about that. But the Duchess does have a drive-through to it, which that's not available here. So there is, maybe not for every customer, but there certainly are conveniences that exist with the Duchess that may not be as available for a site without a drive-through.
Okay, some of these questions, in 1 second, Larry, some of these questions we're definitely going to want Michael Galante to verify or discuss what you said, but we were talking before, and I want to make sure that I'm right. I'm looking at figures 2 and 4, which is the afternoon in and out of the store. There's no change before and after on figure 2 and figure 4 coming out of your location. The thing that I'm struggling with is, I think you made a comment earlier that before the existing 2020, is that assuming it's a vacant piece of land, or you're assuming that Duchess is in there?
And I'm trying to keep up with all the figures here. The figure 4 is essentially the project when it still is a Duchess. So that's a 2022 build year, but the Duchess remains. What you need to compare figure 2 to is figure 6, which is further in the report. And figure 6 includes the 7-Eleven. So I think that's the disconnect.
All right, that's all right. So looking bear with me 1 second. So
sure.
It says volumes proposed for a gas station.
So it goes to the afternoon. All right, so in the morning, in the afternoon, it goes from, in 2020, Duchess is 38, and in 2022 combined, which is now that's 7-Eleven, figure 6.
Correct. Figure 6, yes.
So it goes from 38
I just put it up on
to
the screen.
104.
Yep, 38 to 104 on that right turn, yes.
Okay, and then on the left turn, it goes
28
from
to 39.
28 to 39. Okay.
Yeah, so those are the increases overall expected from the Duchess being converted into a 7-Eleven.
So you're going from 20 to 22 in figures 1, 2, 3, and figures 2 to 4. That's just trending Duchess forward.
Okay, afternoon.
Right?
Sorry, which was the
pages 3 and pages 4, or figures 3 and figures 4? It's still Duchess. It's not just the Duchess.
Still Duchess,
Right,
but with
the one
the
that's
future.
So
Right.
you should compare 4 to 6?
Correct. You should go one.
Yeah. From the site perspective, it doesn't matter, but 4 to 6, 2 to 6 and 4 to 6 are the same, because 2 and 4 are the same from the site.
So it's
4 to 6 is the best comparison.
It's 2 and 6, and then 3, and is there a 7? Or 3 and 5?
It is 1 and 5.
1 and 5, but it's the difference between. I got you. Okay.
Or 3 and 5. Yeah. Sorry for all the numbers.
Because 1 and 3 are the same, but that's still the use. You're switching the use. It's the other one.
Yes.
The change in use is 6, and the change in use is 5.
Correct.
All right. So now, if we just, and I'm going to let you speak in 1 second, Larry. I really apologize. So in the morning, coming out of Birch Road, and Larry lives at Birch Road, there's only one car that goes in the morning, and combined, you only get one guy coming out of, no, Birch Road, there it is. You get 27 people going left out of Birch in the morning.
Yes.
And then, and it went up from
25 to 27. So 2 people. That should just be pointed out. That's 2 new trips. So that doesn't mean that one of those 25 that already exists there, they could also go in there. It's just not an additional trip at Birch Road.
I got you.
Not to make it too complicated, but some of those 25 could also turn in to the site. It's just how many additional cars would you see on Birch Road? We'd expect it to be one or two in a peak hour.
the draw. It's you're only drawing 2 more cars going north, going to
Right.
normal. Just, I mean, we've done these things and we've done these for a piece of vacant acreage that was converted to a dairy and self-storage. We doubled the size of a school, and we had to figure what the traffic goes up. So this, you're changing the use. That's what I'm trying to get my arms around. If you're
Right.
going from a Duchess to a 7-Eleven, in the
Don't look at-
morning, we're going to get 2
look
more
at-
cars, and in the afternoon, we're getting
Exit
hell of a
out
lot
of,
more. Okay, that's fine. I got you. Larry, you're up. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate it. And, you know, I really appreciate all the effort that went into creating this analysis. And I think what I'd like to kind of ask you to maybe just, there's a lot of people dialed in that live in the area, and maybe I know you're the expert, maybe to try to use some layman's terms. And I'm just going to throw out a concern that people have, and I hope I've alluded it, that I want to make sure, hopefully I've told you in the previous meetings that this is what we're worried about. So when I'm looking at, first just make sure I want to understand. You have coming down out of Birch Road, and this is the last page of the document. I'm sorry, the pages are, no, it's 13 to 13. Where you have eastbound right turning vehicles. Now, do I have that right? Wouldn't it be west? Isn't it westbound if you're turning right out of Birch Road?
So Birch Road approaches Boston Post Road in an eastbound direction. It is the vernacular that we use. So
Okay.
you're turning right to head. You could say south or west on Boston Post Road, however you want to determine the directionality.
So a right turn. You have in your analysis the average wait time for a car turning right is 27.9 seconds.
Correct.
Do I have that right?
Yes.
What is the average wait time for a car turning left?
So that, because the vehicles stack up in the same lane of travel. So there's a 1-lane approach on Birch Road. You know, a right turning vehicle has to wait behind a left turning vehicle. So that number, that 27.9, is the average of vehicles that make either a right turn or a left turn. So all of the vehicles, because they are in the same lane, so it's a 1-lane approach. It's not a separate left turn and a separate right turn, in which case those would be measured differently. All of those. So it's saying of all of the vehicles.
So if I can translate that, I think what you're saying to me is the average wait time for turning left or right is 27.8 seconds.
Yes. Yes.
Turning right, you just have to flow into 1 lane of traffic. It's much faster. Turning left, it's much slower.
Right.
So
right. And we look at the average of all of them.
Going to be, you know, as someone who lives on the road, and there's a lot of residents of that road or on this call listening to this, and we know we have an issue because turning left on that road is frankly brutal right now. So I think what I want to ask from you and ask you to kind of say it in a way that not just traffic experts, but all the people who are dialed in right now are going to understand is, if you're on Birch Road waiting to make a left turn, and assuming that, you know, how much traffic is going to be added to Route 1 by the 7-Eleven, what would be the impact on those waits from where they are today to where, you know, to what it would be in the new world where it's a 7-Eleven? Because I assume that you're going to be adding more traffic to Route 1 than Dutchess, right? I think it's a natural assumption you're going to be a busier place, and there's going to be more cars coming out, and a car making a left out of the 7-Eleven. Frankly, when an opening in the traffic happens, you know, they'll have first dibs on that opening, right? That car, right? So then the guy on Birch Road or gal is now, they just lost their shot, you know, and people coming out of Birch Road need to turn left to get onto the highway to go to Stamford. So if you work in Stamford and your commute is to go to Stamford, you know, that's your option. You've got to, and frankly, a lot of people are starting to we're giving up and driving around, taking long things, and I don't want to see it worse. So did I ask the question in a way that's fair and you kind of understand where I'm driving at?
Yes, absolutely. And the simple answer is that our analysis, when we've looked at all the numbers, shows that the 7-Eleven project itself will only be expected to increase that delay by a couple seconds for the average vehicle. So again, it's not separated out left to right. We don't have the ability to, within that analysis, break out the left turn vehicle from the right turn vehicle because they're all in the same lane. But the 7-Eleven project would not be expected to increase the delay for someone turning from Birch Road by more than a couple seconds in those peak periods.
And now can you back that up with why? Because it seems totally counterintuitive to me that you are going to add a lot of traffic to the road, but only increase the average wait time by a minor amount. So just help me understand that.
Sure. So we use a traffic analysis software. It factors in the traffic volumes that were counted. As I mentioned previously, we did a field review. So not only do we have the traffic analysis itself, but we verified that the existing traffic analysis matches what is actually in the field today. So we spent an hour at Birch Road, and again, I'm not representing that that's not going to be a little bit worse in more normal times, but we're doing the best we can with the information that's available to us.
Mm-hmm.
We then add in the traffic volumes, and not to steal Mr. Galante's thunder, I know he has questions that still remain about how we added those vehicle trips onto the roadway network. So that is something that we need to finalize with him. So I'm not trying to represent that our numbers are at this point final numbers. We certainly want to come to agreement with the town's peer review expert and all be on the same page about how we represent this information back to you. But our traffic analysis as currently composed, again, we use all of the numbers as best we can. The trips that are being added from the 7-Eleven, they are distributed over the course of an entire hour. So even though we are increasing the vehicle trips, if you increased it by 50 vehicles, that's a vehicle every minute, right? And that's not even really perceptible to the general driver. So while 50 sounds like a big number, when you think about 50 spread over 60 minutes, that's not that much different for you, the resident looking to turn off of Birch Road. Right? You don't really notice that. And that's what the analysis shows us, is that the delay is not impacted substantially by the introduction of those additional vehicle trips.
So just to make sure we're on the same page, I'm staring at table 1 of your document on the capacity analysis. That it's on the bottom, which is background 2022 and combined 2022.
Yep.
That's the existing 2020 to background 2022. That's just trending forward, right?
Existing to background is just trending right.
Okay, that's fine. Got it. So then we're really going to compare background 2022 to combined 2022, because the background 2022 is Dutchess, combined 2022 is 7-Eleven.
Yeah, or even, I mean, yes, I think sometimes it's easier to compare even the existing to the combined.
I don't really care. It's fine. It's fine. But it's either one. But you're going from existing, your Birch Road delay is 0.3 seconds, and it goes up to 0.4 seconds.
The
0.3.
The Birch Road is the eastbound movement, so it's 26.1, and this is so we talked about 27.9, not to get into too many numbers. 27.9 was the field measured, so we measured 27.9. The analysis tells us it's in the weekday PM 25.8. So again, not exact match, but to be within 2 seconds, I think shows that the traffic analysis is fairly credible in this case. That weekday PM 25.8 goes to 27.1. So, an extra second and a half of average delay.
Right, but if Dutchess stays there and you don't go in, the difference between Dutchess in 2022 and 7-Eleven in 2022, your delay is actually going down with 7-Eleven, not up.
Yeah, and that is
27.6 down to 26.9. So Larry, who lives on Birch Road, is never going to Dutchess in the morning. And Same thing on the other one, it's 2027. And Michael Galante he's the one that's gonna tell us if we're right, wrong, or different. But I'm just making sure that I understand what you're doing. So it's going from 2027 in 2022 down to 27.1. So your wait time with which 7-Eleven there is less, is what you're telling me.
That is what the analysis tells you. Yes.
I'm
That's,
asking what you telling me. You're the
Yep.
one that's that's
yeah, and just, I know that it's a bit of a nuance is why I phrase it like that. The small change, the 0.2 second difference between background and combined is related to the redistribution of those vehicle trips. So the trips from Duchess are slightly different than the trips from the 7-Eleven, and it essentially all comes out in the wash, which is why I would just characterize it as there's not going to be a noticeable impact as a result of the 7-Eleven. You may experience slightly longer of a delay when that 7-Eleven is there than as you do today. I think that's the easier way to think about the impact of the 7-Eleven. That background is somewhat of a theoretical exercise, which we include, but I think comparing existing to combined in this case is the more logical way to say that there will be an added delay, but it's not much.
I've held Michael Galante's feet to the fire when he said there's not going to be more traffic on the Roten Avenue when we build Federal Realty, and he swears that it's not going to be more. And he's been with us for 10 years. So if there's more, he's not going to be with us for 11 years. Who's up next in terms of commissioners? Jim, Rand, or George? Your microphone's on. George, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. Just to confirm on figure 1, the indication is that out of the project site, there are 54 left-hand turns in the morning. And that is contrary to the signage on the site, right?
No, the left turns are allowed out of the site today.
Allowed, but the signage says right turn only, right?
No, there's no right turn only signage. I think what you're referring to is there is an exit sign that I'm not sure when it was installed, but looking at the aesthetics of it, I would guess it was probably in the 80s. It has a small arrow next to the word exit, but there is a very clear pavement marking on the driveway with a straight arrow, and there is no signage indicating right turn only. Left turns are allowed out of that site today. Out of the Duchess, left turns are allowed out of that site.
Okay, by law or by the permit or whatever, but I'm referring to the signage. There are actually 2 signs on either side of the driveway, right? Both of them are brown with white print. Both of them say exit, and both of them have arrows to the right, correct?
There is a symbol resembling an arrow. I would not characterize that as traffic control by any means. That is what looks to me is that a sign was purchased and placed there. It has no bearing on the traffic control of that driveway.
It was placed there by the tenant. The sign exists. It was placed there by the tenant. It was placed there by Duchess.
I don't care who placed it there. There are 2 signs indicating turn right, aren't there?
Yes, you're 100% correct.
I'm asking Mr. Adams.
I do not agree that those are telling drivers exiting the site to turn right. That is not proper traffic control at any level, municipal, state. It's not traffic control that is dictating a right turn movement. There's nothing at that driveway that indicates drivers should only turn right. I agree that there is an arrow-shaped element to that sign, but that is not indicating to drivers that they should turn right.
So average Joe like me, approaching the exit, seeing those signs, doesn't think I ought to take a right-hand turn?
You may. I don't think that the general driver. I mean, some of those signs, the signs, the way they're located, how low they are to the ground, it's pretty low visibility. I don't even know that most people notice those signs. Certainly they know.
Why would they be there if it wasn't to indicate which way traffic goes? I'm sorry. That's like, I'm a little confused. What would be the purpose then, Mr. Adams, for a sign?
I can't speak to why those were placed there.
But
I don't know if there's
signs are making their, even if it's a suggestion, right? I would say that.
Yeah, They are unlike signs I have seen before. The location of the signs, again, they don't speak to the traffic control of that driveway. There is a very clear pavement marking that has obviously been maintained. It's still fairly new. That is a straight arrow indicating, in conventional terms, to drivers that either movement can be made out of that driveway. That arrow would very clearly be painted as a right turn arrow if that was the intention of that driveway. I think that sign was put there at some point by the tenant, and I don't think that it has bearing on the actual operation of that driveway.
There are actually two signs on either side of the driveway.
Right, right.
And the arrow going straight isn't terribly helpful, because if you go straight, you're going into, I think, a sidewalk up to the gym facility across the street. So you're not going to go straight. You got to make a turn, right? Correct?
Right, but that straight arrow is the more general indicator of an exiting movement at a driveway. I mean, you can look all around. There's many sites that have a straight arrow that directs vehicles off of the property. It may be redundant with the fact that you're already at a driveway, and I agree that straight arrow is not saying that you can go straight, but what I am saying is that if that driveway was intended to only have you turn right, that would be a right arrow, which is another common pavement marking.
Okay. And so there was an actual count of 54 in the morning that took a left. That's right?
No, we do not have an actual count there. As was mentioned, we know that volumes at the Duchess are much lower than they normally would be. What we did was we took the traffic volumes that are traveling past the site, and we assigned the vehicle trips based on the distribution of vehicles in front of the site. It presents more left turns than right turns. As you can see in that same figure, 770 vehicles traveling south versus 405 traveling north. It indicates that during that peak period, more vehicles may be drawn to the south, taking a left turn out of the site.
So that's some kind of formulaic analysis. I thought you did actual trip counts on October 13th.
We did actual trip counts at Birch Road. We did observe the site drive on that same day just to see what the distribution was. We observed for a 15-minute period, and we saw essentially equal distribution. 9 vehicles took a left and 8 vehicles took a right from that site driveway. It felt to us that the numbers that we had used were accurate for representing the Duchess.
All right, and just to confirm my math, basically with 7-Eleven there, you're going to double the traffic out of 7-Eleven. You've got 83 currently in figure 1, and then in figure 5 you've got 172, so that's actually a little more than double.
Yes.
And then afternoons we go from 66 to, what was it, 143. Am I understanding that correctly?
You are correct.
All right, thanks.
Welcome.
Jim Rand, you up? Any questions, Jim?
This may be too small a detail to worry about, but I'm still curious about what impact the adjacent office building has on the traffic analysis. I understand that what I think of as standard statistics, whatever database you use, is not current as of November 10th, 2020. But the building has been empty for a protracted period of time. But it's now, if I understand what the landlord said correctly, it's 80+% occupied. Those people have to get into the building every morning and out of the building every night. The people that go eastbound, assuming nobody wants to go through Darien or Norwalk on the Post Road, the people that go eastbound will exit the rear parking lot on Old Kings Highway and take a left and get on the thruway. But the people that want to go westbound have to come out Old Kings Highway on the post road, turn right on the post road, and go in front of Duchess or 7-Eleven so that they can get on the thruway eastbound. And yet I thought I heard, well, the database doesn't go up to 2020, so there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, do we know what 80 or 85% occupancy represents? How many cars coming out of there every day?
So the base of the traffic volumes are from counts conducted by Connecticut DOT as part of their project, and those were conducted in 2016. I am not exactly sure at what point of occupancy that office building may have been in 2016, but the 2016 volumes were then grown. So we've added volumes to the 2016 volumes to get up to a 2020 build year. So we've increased the 2016 up to 2020 to represent what is now considered our existing condition. So even if that office building was at a lesser occupancy in 2016, there still is general traffic growth that has been added to the roadway network to forecast these 2020. So, which is all to say that I would characterize it as being at least fairly represented in the data set that we are using.
In 2016, the office building was basically vacant.
It was vacant. I mean,
Yeah.
So that goes back to the question: do we know what impact that has on the? I mean, if the adjustments you've made to bring 2016 up to 2020 are, you know, a 3.75% compound rate of growth, that's a big office building, and that whatever that growth rate is that you're using to adjust to 2020 would not, I submit, cover the increase that would be experienced with 80 or 85, whatever it is, % occupancy.
Right, and I'm just looking back over our notes here. We did, in the forecasting of the 2020 traffic volume set, we did include renovations to that office building. That's the Darien Crossing office building, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was identified when we spoke with town staff as a project that we should include separately, and we have included trip generation associated with that. So I apologize for misspeaking slightly earlier. That project is included in those 2020 traffic volumes. Now again, going back to the trip generation, we're using industry standard data. I can't tell you that it's exactly what is generated by the office today or will be in 6 months or 2 years, but there have been separate vehicle trips associated with that site that have been added to the traffic volume network.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Got it. Okay, I think that is every commissioner that's spoken at least once. So now I would just like Michael Galanti to turn on your microphone, and I realize, Michael, you heard everything that we asked about, and you know, you can either confirm or deny or say they're still studying. But you know, you're the guy that comes back here every 4 months and says,
thanks, Mike Galante, Horsey and Hannell.
This will not work.
What I'd like to do is just spend a couple of minutes just going back in time a little bit. We wrote our first review letter, which we call preliminary, back on September 17th. And that's the updated traffic report that Jason submitted to the town that we received last Wednesday at the end of the day. So not to be picky, but we've had 3 days, three working days to look at this, and we provided a letter yesterday to the town, at least, you know, in preparation for tonight's meeting. So I just want to make the point, we're not finished with our review. And also, you know, I know everyone's spending a lot of time on a lot of details on the volumes and details of the analysis tonight. But our comments are going to change some of those numbers. As mentioned, we have a lot of technical comments. For example, because of our comments on the volumes, the adjustments to the baseline volumes, we're in a pandemic condition, so it's difficult to go out and count cars today and say these are the volumes for 2020. So that's the reason why us traffic engineers go back in time and use Connecticut DOT data or town data or city data if you're in someplace like Norwalk that has a lot of traffic data, and we use that to come up with a 2020 so-called baseline traffic condition. So we're not finalized on the volumes, for example, at the Birch Road intersection. We have some comments on those volumes based on what was counted, how it was adjusted, and we have some different numbers, if you will, that I don't think they're going to change the results of the analysis, but we haven't even looked at the analysis to say we agree with the level service D and the 27-second delay. We just haven't done that yet because we know it's going to change a little bit. We also have a concern, I'm just touching on a few things, but we have a concern with the distribution patterns that were used in the analysis, and some of those changes are going to change what traffic's going through the Birch Road intersection, for example. In a way, DOT lets us say 20% of site traffic for commercial development is what we call pass-by trips. You get off the highway in the morning, you pull into the gas station in the future as a left turn, and then you come out and you make a left turn out of the site to go into downtown Darien. That's what's considered a pass-by trip, meaning you're already on the road, you're not a new trip. They've assumed a lot of that, and we don't necessarily agree with that distribution. So that's going to change some of the numbers. And I don't mean to be the bad guy at the end of the night, but I'm just highlighting, this is a process that's not finished yet, and there'll be some more analyses provided by the applicant's traffic consultant. We'll review it, and we'll have another letter at some point. And hopefully we'll start bringing, some conclusions to help the town and the applicant to, see where we stand as far as what we think the impacts are on the roads. And Mr. Riley mentioned that, this is doubling the traffic, the new 7-Eleven combination of uses within the site versus the Duchess. That's correct. This development will double the traffic. So just keep in mind when you're looking at, some of the numbers, the Duchess traffic in a way is still in the background that's being used, but they're looking at what's called net increase in traffic. So all of the traffic for all the different uses within the new 7-Eleven site, the restaurant, fast food, whatever it might be, convenience store is included in the analysis and estimates for site traffic. Estimates for site traffic, in the last, I guess the very first report provided by the applicant, we had some comments on the site traffic, and we generally agree with the format to come up with those numbers. Part of it was pass-by credits and so on. For whatever reason, in the second report that came out last week that we saw, they changed the model of estimating site traffic. Very simple terms, they're actually taking credit for pass-by trips twice. So that reduced the numbers a little bit. We really want the applicant's consultant to go back to the site traffic generation from the first report, which is in our letter on page 2. Today, the letter from yesterday, page 2. Those are the site traffic numbers that we agree that are the numbers for the site itself. The numbers in the report from, I guess, last week are slightly lower at the bottom of the table. So we don't agree with that. So we have some comments on that. Again, it's going to change the analyses, and that's why we haven't looked at the analysis yet. Levels of service, vehicle delay, and so on. The report itself that provided is complex. It's not, even though it's a small site in the terms of traffic engineering, it's prepared in a somewhat complex way. And to be honest, we would have done it a little differently and maybe a little easier steps to go through. But at the end of the day, we need to look at what's provided and then analyze it and maybe reanalyze it and come to conclusions. So we have comments on that. And again, I'm just saying these because it's affecting the bottom line, if you will. And that's why we haven't looked at results of analyses. We have started looking at the capacity analyses, and we have comments on some of the inputs, and that's a fairly complex, what we call synchro computer model analysis. And that's how they came up with the delay coming out of Birch Road, for example. It's a computer model. Volumes are put in, lane widths are put in, speed of the road is put in, how many cars are turning right, left, and so on. That's all put into a model. And I agree with them. They did the right thing by going out in the field and looking at it. But again, today's conditions are not February of this year conditions because of the pandemic. The world of a traffic engineer has been turned upside down, to put it mildly, in the last 7 or 8 months, or maybe more now. So, we have concerns with that. With the signalized intersections, we provided the applicant's traffic consultant with the time-space diagrams that we obtained from CONDOT that should be used for the modeling of the traffic signals. And for whatever reason, they weren't used or they were different. So we feel that should be input. So again, there are different steps within the traffic study. The first one, and I'll call the second one, that are going to change the results of the analysis. So I feel bad that everyone has spent a lot of time tonight on some of the nitty-gritty numbers within the modeling and the results and the turns and so on. But honestly, my office, we're not there yet. We have more work to do, and we'll have more comments to help move the process along. We're not here to hold anything up. We're just trying to give the right answers for the applicant and the town. We work for the town in this case to make sure that everyone's comfortable at the end of the day, because the chairman's going to hold me to it.
That's right.
And so, no, and we all kidding aside, we always try to do a good job and do the right thing and help the applicant and certainly help the town to understand the results of a pretty detailed analysis, even though it's a very small site from the perspective of a traffic engineer. But it does generate a lot of traffic, and the new development, if approved, will double the traffic at the site. There's a lot going on as far as gas, convenience store, fast food, and so on. That's going on this site. It's a busy site. I mean, they broke it down. They broke it down as best they can to estimate traffic. And to estimate traffic, it's following a handbook that we traffic engineers use, which is from ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers. That is the document that we pretty much have to use in the eyes of Connecticut DOT and others. One issue that if we weren't in the pandemic, I'm sure they would have counted the driveway and actually identified the Duchess traffic. But the numbers used from the book for a Duchess or a restaurant fast food of this size is based on a fairly successful fast food restaurant. If you went to Duchess today, the numbers are not what they would be if it was another name brand restaurant. So just keep that in mind, because the traffic at Duchess today is very low, and with the pandemic, it's probably lower. So my only point is, and I know I've been negative for the last 8 minutes, but there are various steps within the documents provided that we have concerns with, and that's part of what we've put in this most recent letter from yesterday. And I don't want to say we rushed it, but we did rush it a little bit to get something back to the town so we can have some discussion tonight. And we'll continue working on this to help, not only the applicant, but certainly the town. I know the police have some interest. They've provided some additional accident data to us. I haven't commented on that yet because I want to, kind of get through the entire analysis. I noticed a concern with left turns out of the Duchess driveway. We don't know what the state's going to say as far as 1 lane versus 2 lanes. I know depending on who you speak to, sometimes someone will say 1 lane is right, someone will say 2 lanes is right, and someone else will say, provide a 16-foot wide lane, not striped with 2 lanes, but it'll function as 2 lanes. And I only say this because we do work with developers, and we're on that side of the fence sometimes. But more recently, we've been seeing 1 lane exit coming out of a site. And the Duchess, just to go back, I don't recall any signing out there that says I have to make a right turn out. Certainly no legal signing that says I have to make a right turn out only coming out of that driveway. I made a left turn out of there last week. I was there in the morning looking at things, and I made a left turn out. And I'm not a guy that's going to, do something against the traffic sign. So I want to be the last guy that has the chief of police in town give me a ticket or something. So there is no restriction out there right now. And the painted arrow is sometimes always done on private driveways coming out of commercial developments to be a straight arrow coming out in the lane and a straight arrow coming in the entrance lane to show that it's an entrance lane, it's an exit lane. It's not telling you what to do as far as right, left. You can't go straight because there's nothing straight across the street if I remember correctly. So there's a lot of homework to be done on this, and we'll continue working with everyone to bring it to a conclusion so everyone at the town level and certainly the applicant's level feel comfortable as far as what we say. And that's what we're here for. So I'm not done yet. So that's where I want to leave everyone for the moment.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Absolutely.
I would, we peppered Jason with questions. Michael is going to give his. So Amy, what I would like to move on is to your next topic, and because traffic is still not concluded. So we move on to the next item on your agenda.
Right,
Or
so,
your list.
just in the interest of time, Mr. Chairman, I do see it's 20 of 11. I can have Mr. Mills give you his presentation on sort of safety, crime deterrence issues. And then I think if there are questions for him, then that may be, probably brings us to close to 11. And we'd have to continue for whatever other public comment. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so you want to talk about the 2-page crime prevention brochure? Is that what you're talking about?
Yep. So at this point, I'm going to, I'll pull that up, but I'm going to turn it over to Thomas Mills, who is our, as I said, he is the asset prevention specialist for the New England and North Atlantic region for 7-Eleven. So with that, I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you. Perfect. Welcome, sir.
Good
Just state
evening,
your name.
board. My name's Thomas Mills. You can call me Tom. I'm the asset. I've been employed by 7-Eleven for 5 years as the asset protection specialist, mostly for northern New England and now all of New England. I think one of the things that, as I was reviewing some of the stuff, and Attorney Sochin's put do you have that going up on the board, that PDF file?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. She had sent me some questions that had come up, but I wanted to give you a little bit brief history of myself. As I mentioned, I've been with 7-Eleven for about 5 years in the AP department. Prior to that, I was with a convenience store chain owned by Tedeschi Food Shops, and I worked for them for about 35 years in their loss prevention department. One of the things that I would like to say is over the years, the 7-Eleven crime deterrence program has been put in place, and you'll see on page 2, there's several different markers where they kind of achieved certain things, or they added certain things that were important to the program. One of the things that I want to talk about is during my acquisition time, when 7-Eleven was first acquired Tedeschi Food Shops, some of the things that I heard, because you go into a big company versus a small, southeastern Massachusetts, Cape Cod type of company, we heard a lot of stories about the crime and the various things that happen in some of the 7-Elevens. And when the acquisition and during the transition, one of the things that I realized really very quickly is it wasn't the case. That 7-Eleven, like any community or any business, they realize crime's going to happen. It could happen anywhere at any time. So one of the things that 7-Eleven did is they put together over years, several years, a crime prevention program. And part of that, the biggest part of that, includes some of their training programs that they have. So, for example, the store, there are 2 different types of training programs that I want to briefly talk about. One of them is a CBT, computer-based program. Those programs are, they're more interactive with the new employees as they're hired. They also have to have those programs, or those CBTs have to be re-upped on a compliance level every year. So there are certain things that they have to monitor and make sure that they're in compliance with. For example, some of the topics that they go through, and these CBTs, as we call them, they go anywhere from 20 minutes to about 45 minutes, and they get into some detail and some question and answers with the new employees. Some of the things that we talk about in those is some addressing of shoplifting and robberies, working safely, workplace awareness, fraud prevention, anti-money laundering, and Patriot Act. Those are some of the compliance issues that we have to, regulatory issues, and age-restricted sales. Those are all items that they have to do every year. They do them when they're first going through their training program, and then they re-up them every year as part of the compliance program. In addition to that, there are several videos that the Asset Protection Department has produced for the stores to kind of work everybody along on reminding them on how to maintain a safe work environment. For example, managing your cash drawer, keeping the money down low. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things, and I think that's in this crime deterrence packet a couple of times, is keeping the money down low. The money is the attractant for a robbery, and if you keep it down low, hopefully they'll move on, and that's what you want to try and do. You want them to move on. You don't want to become the target, just like nobody else wants to become a target of any crime. So we do that by really enforcing the cash drawer money. Some of the other videos that they have to watch, and these are videos. These aren't anything that they get quizzed on or anything. They're just animated videos. Active threat awareness, an introduction into asset protection. Again, age restricted. Emergency response, what to do in certain things. Along with the emergency response, there's a quick reference guide that we keep at the counter. And that emergency response could be anything from a gas spill, that they have a quick reference guide, who to call, what to do, so on and so forth. And the same thing with, they lose power, or if there's a robbery, or if there's a shoplifting incident or something like that. Scams, how to prevent scams. And then obviously the big one, the robbery and the crime prevention. And along with the robbery and the crime prevention, we also put out annually a monthly poster that's similar to a calendar. They just peel off, and it gives them tips on what to prevent for things. And they usually keep that in the employees area in the back room. And then also we have the safety zone video that goes along how to keep your work area and everything safe. And those are some of the training programs. I know that we have a member of our operations team here tonight, and he could probably, how they implement those training programs, he could probably speak to that better, but those are the ones that are more related to asset protection and crime prevention. Some of the other things that we do, and some of the physical security and the preventative measures that we have in place. The first thing that we want to do is we want to create a safe looking environment. And that's with the lighting, internal and external lighting. We want it to look safe. We don't want a dark business area to come in. It doesn't look safe. We also want to create what we call the fishbowl effect. And what that is that's creating the environment with the lighting and with the location of the cash register. Make sure that there are no signs in the windows, no merchandise displays, anything that's blocking the view of the cashier. And the purpose is we want people to be able to drive by and see what's going on in the store. If the police department drives through the parking lot or passes on the street, they can see what's going on inside the store. In addition to that, we also want the cashier to be able to look outside, and that's where the lighting comes in place outside. One of the things that, and I probably should have moved it up a little bit further to number one, is our customer service. All of the cashiers are trained to greet every customer as they come in the door. And that's an important factor because it gives everybody the impression that they're paying attention to what's going on around them. They're aware of their surroundings. And it also, obviously, it's a number one item in your customer service. some of the other items that we have in place, the low cash, we talked about the cash. And those were also in that brochure. During the day, the cash draw limits are $50. During the evening, they're reduced to $30. In addition to that, we have the time access safes where only the manager has money to that. There's also signage for that up at the door, that there's a time delay safe and the cashier does not have access to that money once it goes in there. And then also for their change, that's where they're getting that from. So they have to, part of their drawer management, they have to be able to make sure that they plan ahead for their change, because there's going to be a delay for any cash that's coming out of those dispensers. In addition to that, we also have some hold-up alarms in the stores. Some of them are remote, and they go to a private monitoring service who will contact the police whenever there's an emergency in the store. We also have the digital surveillance systems, the DVRs we call them. This store here is a gas location, so this store will also have cameras on the front of the building covering the gas pump area. Normally it's 2, but depending on the size of the pumps and the size and the location, it might have to be increased to 3 or 4, but normally it's 2. Along with those pumps, or with those cameras, excuse me, there are monitors inside the store for the cashier to view those, so that they can always see what's going on out at those cash pumps, or those gas pumps. Now that's also, I think, required. I know in Massachusetts it's required by the fire marshal. It's part of the fuel requirement. So I'm not sure about Connecticut. It's probably very similar. But that is also something that's kind of, it's nice to have those outside cameras. And one of the major things that we work with, and this is along with myself, along with the store manager, along with the field consultant, is the law enforcement engagement. And we work with the local police departments. We'll take advice from the local police departments. If something comes up where the police department is looking for some assistance in an investigation, they need video or something like that for a stolen credit card or something like that, that's something that we can supply them, and we do supply them regularly. We have 2 ways that they can actually get the video. They can either call us and get it directly from the store, or they can email it and to Dallas, which is where the store support center is, and somebody out of the AP team in Dallas will gather up the video and then send it off to the police department from the legal department. So with that being said, I think I've covered a lot of the different areas. If you guys have any questions.
Sure, thank you, sir. I appreciate that, Tommy. If I'm allowed to call you Tommy, you said I could.
Yeah, most certainly you can.
Great. There's 2 quick items I have, and then I'll open up for any of the commissioners that have any questions. The fish pole item, and I'm not sure how this relates or not, but I don't remember, and it really didn't come up as a topic tonight, of the facade of the building. But one of the documents we had said that it talks about the windows, added lights with the windows, but it says the proposed black glass does not work with the design. You said earlier that it's supposed to be a fishbowl design so you can see in. Do you know what black glass they were talking about that was in the design?
I have not seen the design, so I really couldn't comment to that. I'm assuming that the black glass was probably used, and Amy could probably speak to it better, and probably for lighting or something.
I was hoping that.
So I was going to say, Amy Suchins for the record, the ARB's comment about the black glass was related to dormers that were going to be on the building roof.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
They were basically just for visual effect, not actual, functioning windows.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. I didn't know if it was a mirror. It was mirror where you can't see in and Tommy wants you to see in versus something like that.
Right. No.
And, okay. Then the only other item, talk about everything, and I do appreciate Tommy's accent from being from Massachusetts. On one of the memos or emails we got from the police department, it's Captain Robert Shredders. He talks about accidents. It's really not the reason I'm asking these. Is that as far as I'm gonna read what he says. It says, as far as security concerns, any establishment that's open 24 hours in close proximity to I-95 will be a target for robbery at some point. And this is where you come in. It says, I would suggest a panic alarm and a good camera system. You talked about your good camera system. I'm guessing that you would say yes to his suggested panic alarm.
Yes, that is already standard in all our in the plans, and the panic alarm is also there. That we call them hold up alarms, but panic alarms, it's the same item.
Okay. So what these, it's a bunch of different members, Jeremy or Penny directly put into the file. It's from the police department, but the chief of police stated something, and then this guy who's in charge, Captain Robert Treaders, he made his 2 suggestions. That's all he suggested at this time. So that's it. Any other commissioners? Commissioners, do you have any questions for Tommy relative to this topic? It seems like they have a dedicated department that totally takes care of crime deterrent and crime prevention at a national outlet such as 7-Eleven. I don't see anybody jumping up. Go ahead, Karen.
So thank you. That presentation was really helpful and thorough and informative. I guess you spoke about the fishbowl effect and that the way the stores are typically designed is, to also allow for, police patrolling and monitoring. They can drive by and see what's going on. But I think because this building is turned to the side, is that going to be impacting that ability to see what's going on inside the store, because the front of the store faces towards Norwalk and what faces the post road directly, and right, they face the pump, the front faces the pumps, and that's where the entrance is, and not the front facade doesn't face the post road. So does that have any impact or effect, in your opinion, on this sort of fishbowl where passersby and the police can, monitor and see what's going on into the front of the store?
I haven't seen the plan, to be honest with you. I just found out about the meeting here on Friday, so I haven't had a chance to review any of the plans. A lot of that stuff is handled, outside our department, and then as we get closer towards completion, then we start getting involved, and sometimes they'll reach out and ask about certain things. So I don't, when I talk about the fishbowl theory, what I'm referring to is, standard, you would think a store has their front door facing the street.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like the store actually has that. But we would still have, just because the store's not facing the street, doesn't mean that we don't keep those windows open and those windows clear that are closest to the register, so that you have that clear line of sight in.
You see the problem with the way they orientated the building? I don't think there's any windows on that facade. So to your point, if you're driving from Stanford past the store towards Norwalk, that facade that faces the post road, I think is a blank wall.
Amy, did you have that plan up?
That's what I was looking at. We actually have, I was looking for, and I think it has not been submitted to this commission, but I can pull it up. We have a rendering. I was just looking to see if we have it, that shows what the view would be from the post road, from the post road. So it's not a straight on angle. at that as you're driving by, but you are able to see, there is visual clearance to the front of the store from the post road. So it's not as your, let me pull up the plan. That's.
See, what I'm driving at, Amy, is that if ARB is telling you no windows on that front facade, that's in contradiction with what Tommy's saying relative to Fishbowl.
Right. No. So I can.
That's the point. And this, yeah, I mean, that shows the orientation. The very, very first night of your plan, the first guy that you had speak was the architect. And that wall that's on the bottom of the page right now you're talking about, I know it's blocked by 3 trees, or there's at least, I think there's 1 tree there. And I thought there was the 7-Eleven logo on that whole facade. That's the facade that's blocked.
There is, and if I pull up the original, just trying to see if I have the original architectural.
We don't have to get deep in the weeds relative to that.
But so yes, so right here, if you can see my cursor, that short facade facing the post road is in fact, there are no windows there, and because of the layout of the building, there would not be windows there. What we can prepare in the rendering that we'll be submitting to you as part of the architectural plans, you can see there is a rendering that shows what the view of the building is, basically from the entrance all the way past the site, and certainly from this portion. While from here you're not able to look directly into the building, the architect did keep visual visual lines into the building from the street. So you'll see in the rendering that if you're over here on the post road, you do have a visual into the building.
Right. So you go, that's if you drive from Norwalk south to Stanford, but if you're driving from Stanford north to Norwalk, or you're going post road from Maine from Florida to Maine.
If you're driving from downtown to Stanford, or excuse me, to Norwalk, your view is more limited.
Correct. That's right. I just want to make sure that your security guy, Tommy, is in concert with your architect and is on the same page as the architectural review board. Because if you guys are conflicting what he's saying, you're not doing, and I mean, I don't know what the final answer is, but.
If I may, this is Christina Pimenta. I'm from the construction department with 7-Eleven. So when we design a building, we go through a pretty intense floor plan review with our floor plan department, and we work with the architect with a peer review. So they can't design and produce a building for us that doesn't meet these types of considerations. It's not an architect just drawing something that we're going to build. We have to make sure that it meets all of 7-Eleven requirements on all sorts of levels. So this is something that we take into consideration.
Have been submitted to us, the sort of considerations of changing the orientation and limiting the visual sight lines of passing cars and passing police, which your asset protection expert spoke about. So would that have been part of your process? And are there documents that can be submitted to us where we can see where that was addressed and by the architect?
Well, part of the conversation that I had with the architect last week was windows in the front, and I asked him to remove a window because I didn't think that the ARB would like the positioning of the window. And his immediate response to me said, I can't remove that if the ARB wants it done. It's going to limit the visuals to the gas canopy and to the road, and it's not going to pass. So it's something, I know he's not on the call today, but it's definitely something that he's very aware of in the design.
And so one of the things that for our next call, one of the things that we will be discussing with you, or our next meeting, is the architecture. So we'll have the architect on board, and he can answer those questions directly. As Christina just outlined, he can give you that information and what he took into account, and the directions he received with respect to, the fishbowl and the appropriate sight lines at that next meeting.
Okay, because I'd rather have the asset protection people and the P&Z commission and your layout architects on the same page. If asset protection says you have to have windows on the front of the building to make it a fishbowl, tell our ARB, sorry, it's required. What are you gonna tell you? So, It's
The
now past,
That was an ARB, that. I don't know,
yeah,
was it?
it's now past 11 o'clock. Is there something that you want to wrap up, Amy, tonight that we can wrap up? Go over it again?
I don't think so because of, frankly, just sort of where we are in the process. I know there are certainly still some public comments that need to be received. We had been hoping to be through ZBA next week, but due to some quorum issues, we have been continued at their request to their December meeting, but I don't think that, the only thing that may have relevance for you is the whether or not they give us a variance on the location of the sign, which will tie into yours. And then the last thing is that I think as we had mentioned at the last meeting, we did have a meeting with ARB about 2.5 weeks ago now. We forwarded some additional building designs for them for their consideration. Ultimately, they remain unable to get consensus on the various building plans that we have submitted to them. So after consultation with your staff and the ARB staff over the course of the last week, we will be finalizing a plan and submitting the architecture to you and proceeding with the unfavorable report we got from the ARB, and ask you to make a determination about the architecture and the overall plans. I think, frankly, some of the things that we've raised with you tonight with respect to the safety issues that are clearly in your jurisdiction, we're coming up with the ARB and their requests about lighting or design things. So I think having everything in front of you after, as I said, after discussion with the staff. So we're finalizing the building, incorporating as much of the ARB feedback as we could, as well as the building canopy, which obviously incorporates the question that Mr. Chairman had raised at the last meeting about the types of lighting and making sure the canopy was recessed and all those issues. So I think we'll have that for next week for submission in time for your November 24th meeting.
Okay. The last piece I want to give you as homework again is I don't know if Jeremy sent this to you. Jeremy sent us, and I guess you do have it, is a couple resolutions that were done for other gas convenience stores.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're dated 2018, 2002, and I think there's another one from either later.
2003. I think there was one.
Yeah. The point of that is if you do read these in certain spots, it gives you hours of deliveries, hours of operations of this, and delivery between, pickups and drop-off times. That's something that we're going to want to make sure we have that on paper from you guys, is when the deliveries are going to be, so that it's not in conflict. And because eventually, whatever your deliveries times are going to be, that's going to make it into a resolution. So I want you to give it to us whenever you're ready.
And to the extent that we can discuss that, if we had more time, we can certainly have that discussion tonight, but we can do that at the next meeting. We did read through those approvals and have some feedback as well.
Yeah, it's just like no pump cover, and then the trash and delivery pickups between this time and that time, that kind of stuff. You know what I'm talking about.
We will have that prepared.
Okay, great.
Continue this hearing. The next hearing on this will be Tuesday, November 24th at 8 p.m. It'll be another go-to meeting call. We'll be publishing the final numbers, the call-in numbers, Thursday before the meeting. Again, this hearing is continued to Tuesday, November 24th, 8 p.m.
Just apologize to the general public.
Again, we're hoping to take more public comment on the next meeting, but I would invite the public, if you want to send a letter to the Planning and Zoning Department, what we will do is pass it along both to the commission members and the applicant and include it as part of the record, and that will save you the public speaking portion of it, and it carries the same with the commission by putting it in writing that if you say it at a public meeting.
And you said a letter, you can send an email.
Letter, email is another, you can certainly send it to me and I'll pass it along. My email is jginsberg@darien.ct.gov. I know I got one email earlier today, which I passed along both to the commission and the applicant, and we'll have that posted to the web later today or more likely tomorrow or Thursday. So again, if you have letters, emails, or want to hand write a letter, submit it to the department. It allows the commission to read what you've written prior to the meeting, and that way they'll be prepared if they have questions about the letter. And in the interest of time, it allows your input to come in and make sure it's heard by the commission.
And all of our emails and hot links are on the webpage.
Yes. My email address is on the
And
webpage.
so is mine. I know that, right? Okay.
So thank you all.
Okay, with that being said, it is now 11:11. Good timing. I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting. I got Jim Rand's in there. Come on, Kara, give me a second. Yeah, Kara.
Second.
In favor? Thank you, Amy Sochins. We'll talk to you again.
Thank you.
All right, good night, everyone.